Shalom to everybody. Trying to get the podcast moving. Try this again. All right. Shalom, everybody. Welcome. I believe we have everything up and running. How's everybody doing on this rising? Prayerfully, you're doing all right. Thanks for being on with us today. Excited to be with you one more again. All righty. So, welcome to everybody. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect His message. Amen. Amen to everybody. Grand rising to everybody. As always, this Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We are thankful and grateful to Him for Marshawn, Malcolm, Betty, Isabella, and Solomon. Daddy loves you all very much. And to Lottie Dottie and everybody, to Yashel, SOC, the moderators, ministerial staff, friends, family, enemies, people who like what we have to say, don't like what we have to say. If it's your first time hearing us, this is one time of many, etc. We're thankful for another opportunity to be able to talk to you all again. Shalom to everybody and welcome on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, the podcast. We're excited. Thanks for being on, Sister Katie, Minister Tamara, to Dawn, to Tamika, to User 221, Minister Nice, Minister Select Sonia, Betty, Trina, Valisa, who was also with us for Early Rise of Bible Study. Everybody, thank you so much for being on. Sister Deja, etc. Everybody. If I missed you, charge it to my head and not to my heart. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Yeah, at some point, we'll see. We're just trying to make sure we have enough views, as is what the Most High is trying to do. And we're thankful, grateful for everybody across the board. Alan, everybody, we're thankful for you all for being on with us. And we had a great session today for our Early Rise of Bible Study session, and I'm excited. And we're going to continue with this. We started off, really, before I even started off, listening to Miles Monroe talk about something that's going to be powerful and even connected to what we're talking about. And then from there, we went to talking about the gift, the Doria that goes with the Kaddish, the grace. And so we're excited about that. Idaho announced, okay. I had never even heard of that spot. Geipourn. I don't even know how we pronounce that, but okay, cool. Idaho announced. So we're grateful and thankful to everybody for being on all over the world, and those who will listen to this later on, those who are watching this live, we appreciate you. Hello, Morgan, how you doing? So we're here to speak specifically on. Hello, Sheila. We're here to talk about definition of society. That's the motif. That is the theme for today. Is definition of society, right? Society. How is society defined? And really, we know that society within our culture should already be fine. Unfortunately, we have to go through this thing of defining it, breaking down what is already fine. Hello, Sister Barbara. And so we want to talk about how society is defined. And I want to start off with something that's very powerful. I was listening to a podcast, and this is something that is somewhat theoretical. However, when you do some research on it, you'll find that there's a lot of truth in this. I was watching the podcast, and how you doing, Desiree? Or is it Desire? Desire Summerall, Desiree Summerall. Thanks for being on. Big Brother Thomas, how you doing as well? I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast basically was talking about how there is a and by the way, I have gotten you guys messages about things to watch or whatever. I'm trying my best. I get quite a few different videos and YouTube links and things like that. I think somebody sent me something, said, what is your opinion on this? I haven't. I'm trying. I'm going to try and go through it today. I have like one meeting today, impromptu, and then from there, pretty much I'm going to be trying to grind. So we'll hopefully, prayerfully, be able to get to answering those questions and looking at those videos, just to let you guys know. Hello, Breezy, how you doing? But we wanted to, and hello, Sister Kimberly as well. Hey, how you doing? Was it Urban Royalty and ATL? This person, when I was listening to the podcast, they basically started off by saying, or not started off, but they were having a conversation and they talked about there was a theory out there. Once again, if you do some research, you'll find this theory seems to have some kind of context and fact to it. How you doing, TJ? Grand Rising. And what you'll discover is that what they were talking about is when it comes to all these empires and kingdoms that fall, and this is usually Eurocentric kingdoms. So they don't, when certain people have certain conversation about everybody, they really mean just about Eurocentric. So hello, Helen. Hello, Sis Beverly. They were talking about how when we look at a lot of these kingdoms fall, one of the things that happens when the kingdom falls, when the culture falls, when this group falls, is that basically you deal with people that start trying to figure out gender. Like usually when you look at all these kingdoms that fall, gender becomes a huge topic of discussion. Right? When you look at these things fall, gender usually becomes a huge topic of discussion. Now, why is that important? Shalom, Sister Marion, how you doing? Now, why is that even important? Why is that something to even think about, right? Why is that, somebody be like, oh, so you're focusing on gender roles, isn't that, or whatever, so you're just like them. But it's important to recognize, because it's not just the gender issue. It's when people are trying to redefine roles, period. It was fine the way it was. Thanks for the love, the baddest. How you doing? It was fine the way it was, right? How you doing, Brother Clem? It was fine, but we redefined it and then redefined it, right? So much that the issue that happened is that we started saying everything is up for debate. How you doing, Sister Laura? How you doing, Tree Living by Water? We started saying everything is up for debate. There are no defined roles. There are no roles that are defined the way that they are. And if you look at all these kingdoms that end up falling, all these empires that fall apart, they start with roles being totally changed. It's a sign of it, right? But they said they were talking about specifically gender roles is something that happens. I want to tell you that all roles are now defined differently than what they originally were. And that is what happens when if you want to see if a society is going to make it, or if that society is worth anything, you must comprehend that that society had roles in place. They had things that were fine. They were executed in the same manner, sometimes for thousands of years. And then all of a sudden, when we get to the end of that society, you will find that they start changing what got them the power they had in the first place. This is why we must make a concerted effort, Yastel. This is why we must make a concerted effort, right, in the diaspora to ensure that we define roles according to what we define them as, and that we have to keep them fine. We have to stop defining them, breaking them down. We must keep it fine. What do we say a wife is? And we keep it fine. Definition of society is what causes society to flourish or to fall or to rise. That's why when somebody takes over somewhere else, colonization or straight up, murder off of society, genocide, whatever, you have to not only come in and take over. Thank you for the love, Sister Sharice. You also have to come in and do what? You have to now come in and you have to put in your own institution or your own institutions, or redefine what an institution is. That's why when you check out Black's Law Dictionary, which is the dictionary they're going to use in court. Thank you, Son 413, for being part of the community. When you go look up what is a human in Black's Law Dictionary, human is considered to be a monster, because in this society, if you actually discover humanity, you become monstrous. If you don't move in hatred, right? I see what you just said, NYA, so I don't know when you're saying I'm muted, right? If I don't catch every single thing that everybody says, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. I'm a human being, right? So you have to comprehend, right? And who makes the standards? What is our standard? What is the standard? The standard is a flag. The flag is what waves. The flag is in battle. The standard is somebody sits there and they don't even fight. They just make sure with two hands that they hold the standard in place. If you see the standard fall, you're probably going to lose. And the problem is that when you keep changing what society is supposed to be, when you keep changing, I don't know if there's Q&A box or not. If there's not, well, I will try my best to get to you guys. But hey, shalom. When you keep changing the standard and the standard keeps falling, you keep losing. Shalom, Sister Deborah, how you doing? Right? If you keep changing the standard, do you hear what I'm saying? If we're going to keep changing what the standard is supposed to be, then we're going to keep losing. The flag keeps falling. There's nothing to look up to. You know why it's so easy? Thank you, Holy Spirit, for this. Because I was not even prepared to go here, but let us do so. Why is it so easy to say that a man is toxic? Why is it so easy to say that masculinity is toxic? Just quick question. Why is it so easy to say that masculinity is toxic? Hello, Yako. How you doing? You started talking about that last month. Amen. That's great. Right? Why is it so easy to say that toxicity is I'm sorry, that masculinity, excuse me, is toxic? It's easy to say it is because there's no standard. All right, thank you. 100% true. Right? It's easy. It's easy to say something's toxic, that masculinity is toxic, when there's no standard for it. Well, because men have a propensity for protection, it gets twisted, yeah. But you can twist it easily when there's no standard. I mean, what is you see, here's the issue. If I were to ask most people, what is it that makes a male a male? We're going to have to get into a discussion on why male doesn't mean what you think it is, or why man doesn't mean what you think it is, or why masculine doesn't mean what you think it is. The problem is, though, is that you keep telling me this, but you're going off of a truth, your truth. Live your truth. This is what I believe. This is how I interpret. But there's always going to be only one interpretation. There are many applications. But when people start trying to live as if the application is the interpretation, now we're in a position where we can have a conversation about masculinity correctly. Because what is it? You said masculinity can be perceived as a threat. It's their own interpretation. Yeah. And whose culture is that interpretation coming from? Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, how do you interpret masculinity? I think you use a 3-5-2. How do you interpret masculinity if there's no if there's no true definition? If everybody has an interpretation, it doesn't matter what the definition is if you're not going to listen to it. That's really what happens. When somebody says, I interpret, then you actually get out a definition of interpretation. Interpretation is based off of what did the person say when they created it within their culture? What did they mean? Thank you for the love, Sister Barbara. What did they mean when they said masculine? Right. And so now you can see somebody who's supposed to be protection as a threat. Watch this. You can see a covering as a threat. Right? Oh, my covering, they're a threat. Matter of fact, you will say you would think that it's all right for ladies to start being more masculine than men. I'm not just talking about lesbians. I'm talking about ladies. You're supposed to be ladies out here, but ladies now. But watch this, lady. Can I show you something? Can I show you why? One of the reasons why it's so difficult to be a man and even to approach women. Women will say, "Oh, well, women are so much. Men can't handle what is it that you ladies often tell us is that we're afraid to come up to you, or we're afraid of you, or we're not ashamed, but we're intimidated. That's what the word usually you'll hear. Oh yeah, men out here, they're just intimidated of us. My grandma rising to you, Omar. They're just intimidated by us. However, if you are a man nowadays, most men say they don't need, or sorry, most women say they don't need you in the first place. How do you approach somebody? I'm not saying you, sister, have said that, but I want you to hear this. You, there are a lot of women who represent you, say they represent you, not necessarily so, right? But they say they represent you, and they keep telling people why a man's not needed. It used to be that a man showed up because he was needed. That was part of his courting, so to speak. Even those who date, right, and go into the dating game, that was part of your courting. What is it that I can provide that she would need? There were defined roles. Yeah, ladies wear the pants in the relationship, all that. Yeah, right. But there was a defined role. How you doing, Leland? So it was a defined role. I'm coming up because society has defined that I, as a man, am supposed to do this. Now there's no defined role. There was a defined role that if I'm coming into your life, I'm supposed to be able to make you feel secure. Security, your number one need. Now, since you say you don't need security, but then you say you need a man. You tell me to be a man, but you say you don't need security. Well, I'm supposed to provide security, but you say you need me to be a man, but you say don't try to provide me security. I don't need security. Well, then I say, well, what else do you need? You say, I don't know. Figure it out. Be a man. And a lot of brothers are out here saying, time out. I don't know what's going on. Somebody help me. Yeah, they're too strong for a man, or the strong black woman. I talked to a lot of black women. It was black women that had to start correcting me a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. My wife started doing so before them, and had to come to me and start saying, I don't really like being called a strong black woman. Why do I always have to be the strong one? And that was a mind warp for me. That was a tough place to be for me, because I've heard the only reason I was saying strong black women so much was because I kept hearing black women say that they needed to be strong and they didn't need a man. It's a very tough place when there's no definition. There's no definition. Like, definition needs to be something that when you see it, you know it. When you see a six pack, I don't have one, right? When you see, well, I got one, but it's underneath all this other stuff, right? But when you see a six pack, you know that's a six pack. It's defined. We call that defined, right? It's definitive. How you doing, Sister Tracy? It's definitive. That's a six pack. That brother's abs, that sister's abs, that's a six pack. It's defined. You know it when you see it. But we're in a situation where today you see a man, you don't know it if you see it. You see a woman, you don't know it if you see it. You see a husband. Husband is different than a man. I'm not saying that a woman should be a husband, but a man not supposed to be a husband in our culture. You're supposed to graduate from man to husband. You have to be pre-qualified as a husband. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you're a husband. But people define husband as, hey, a man walked down the aisle with a woman, kissed her on the lips, and so he became a husband. That's what they say. You don't know it when you see it. You don't know what you're seeing. Sorry, Dawn said being taught to be strong and independent black woman, not to have to be a woman or a wife. Yeah. Lily says it's sad to me. Sorry. When a man sees a woman with a home and a car, the man will say he's not needed, and all the woman is doing is providing because she does not have a man. It's a tough place. Well, that's a part of the conversation too, right? So I'm not strictly only getting on women. However, here what I'm saying is that man, and we can say, I know what people say about the word assume. You have to be careful about assume, because it makes it's not a curse word. It makes an ass out of you and me, right? So I get that. However, like, there's a lot of brothers that make that assumption because they have approached these women who have the car and the home, who has to take care of herself, and she'll be like, I don't need a man. Now, I'm not saying every woman should be out here just waiting on some knight in shining armor to show up. That's far-fetched, right? However, there's no logic that we're under that's the same. There's no confession. You said we had to learn the hard way. So nowadays it's look but don't speak. So I'm very quick to say I don't need a man. Yeah. A lot of brothers are confused about their role because of strong black woman. And sometimes it's because of other things in society too, right? Said you don't like being strong, called strong either. Yeah, that was something that was news to me just a few years ago, because I always heard women tell me that they were strong black women. So I was like, okay, But you got to comprehend And I'm not saying you have to become weak in the sense, but comprehend, like the Bible calls you the weaker vessel, and people mess this up all the time. They think that means that, oh, she just can't lift weights like I can lift weights, because we're so into only physiology, or something physiological rather, that we miss the psychological. The reality is that the weaker vessel is implying that you are more, that you are actually of more value, because a woman. See. Remember when you talk about the Proverbs 31 woman? May I ask a question real quick? You guys can holler back to me in the chat, if you're on, if you want to try and call in, if you're on the device, whatever. If you're on TikTok, you need to let me know if you're trying to call in on live. But you have to, you have to get to a place to where you. I want to ask, like, does anybody think about the fact that the Proverbs 31 woman, or let me ask it like this: how many women think, or I don't even know how to ask this so everybody can write the answer in the chat easily. Yes or no? How about this? Yes or no? Are there are there more women that are Proverbs 31 women than there are women that are not? Are there more Proverbs 31 women in existence? Yes or no? Are there more than not that they're Proverbs 31 woman? Yes or no? Yeah, right. No. No. You said, I think our definitions of strength and weakness need to be redefined. Well, once again, they don't need to be redefined. They were fine the way they were. We need to refine it. We need to get it back. We need to cleanse it. We've defined it and redefined it so much that you don't even know what that means. But there are, right, but there no. Yeah, and when you step into a role that wasn't, see, watch this. Here's something that we have to also comprehend, brothers, that you have a lot of sisters who were raised in an environment and then had to function in an environment once they got to be adults, where they had to go outside of what their role was in order to ensure that their family still went through. So when a woman tells you she's independent, she's telling you she's brainwashed. I mean, yeah, in a sense, yeah, sure. Like as far as like Willie Lynch type syndrome, things like that, yeah. You said when we're called strong, that automatically puts us in a category where we don't have to be protected, and that's what happens a lot of times, right? But there are less women who are Proverbs 31 women. Now it says the weaker vessel. You got to comprehend the weaker vessel is talking about weak, as in she is some, like, watch this. If you have an antique vase, that antique vase is something that needs to be protected. If it falls to the floor, it gets put in a place of weakness. You protect it, you put it in a position to where it can't just fall like that, or that people can't come close to it like that, because you don't want anybody to touch that thing. It is by definition a weaker vessel. It is more valuable, because, and therefore, since it is more valuable, it must be protected. That's what we mean, or at least culturally, if you're in the right cultural mindset and frame of mind, that's what we're saying when we say weaker vessel. We're saying that you are so valuable as a woman, right? When your culture, our culture says that you are so valuable that you must be protected. Why? Just like the antique vase, there's a story that you give. You are the one who brings life out. Just because of that in and of itself, I know there's many different things, right? But if we were to just start there, the fact that we cannot bring our own child into this world without you is telling us that we need to what? Protect you, right? Well, people can try to be independent. I'm sorry, you said no one can be independent relationship. If you are independent, that means you depend on yourself. But there's the issue is that you have a lot. By the way, there are men. See, men don't say I'm independent, but let's be honest, there are men that are independent in relationships too. But there's the cognitive dissonance. How are you independent? Now, somebody says, "How's a man say?" Men don't say that they're independent. Men will get in a relationship and say, "You need to cook, clean, wash my clothes, not say anything, do this or whatever. I don't want to hear your opinion, this and that, but you better do what I say." So I'm going to be independent of you, right? And I'm going to treat you like I can do anything without you. There's cognitive dissonance in these relationships. But once again, where is the role defined? right? That's why we don't talk about independence and we don't talk about dependence. You shouldn't be totally dependent on somebody. I'm totally dependent on my wife to do blah, blah. No, I'm not totally dependent on my wife. I'm interdependent with my wife. You said you had to explain that week in the Bible yesterday. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, be careful with the phone data and stuff, Sister Tracy. I don't want you to get caught up. We always got these recorded. So, right. But, and I'm sorry, Don said a man told me I am loved even though I'm weaker than, but we're still equal. Glad I have been in these lessons. Well, check this out. It's not even about equality. Once again, where are we getting these defined or who is this defined? It was fine before the way it was. Right. Where are we getting these roles from? In definition of society. Society is messed up because in our homes, we can't even function by roles. How are you going to ask your child to function in a proper role? How are you going to ask a teacher to teach a proper role if they come from a bad house? Watch this. Malcolm X said it like this. If you have a poor family, if you have a poor family, you have a poor, right? If you have a poor family, you have poor parents. If you have poor parents, they came from poor parents. If they have poor parents, they were poor children. If they were poor children, they came from a poor background. If they came from a poor background, that meant they went to poor schools. If they went to poor schools, they came from poor neighborhoods. If they came from poor neighborhoods, the poor neighborhoods were built by poor people. Those poor people came from poor parents, and the cycle starts all over again. If you have a poor mindset of what it is, if you have a poor definition of what a relationship is, you're just going to continue to cycle generational curse. Everyone has different strengths. We have to work together. I'm with you on that. Right? If your definition though is going to be poor of what you're supposed to pour into somebody, how are you going to pour into somebody something that's not poisonous if you have a poor perspective on what you're pouring? I know I just hit you with a lot of pours there. Prayerfully, you with me on that, right? If you do not know how to pour into somebody correctly, right? You will pour into somebody poorly, poor. It is without a doubt. If you have I was watching somebody else yesterday, right? Um, and this was a sister who was on here telling women how to make sure that they can get men to spend money on them, and basically was, telling them how to finesse guys for money or whatever. And she said that her mother, this is what she said. She said that her mother taught her, right? She learned a long time ago from her mother that if a man, and this is where it becomes sad, it's not her speaking, it's her mother speaking. She's just continuing the conversation that she had. And she said that her mother told her that if a man, hear what I'm about to say, her mother taught her that if a man cannot pay all your bills and then pay his at the same time, and even if you're not living together, this and that or whatever, if he cannot do those things, then he's not a man. And she said, I'm looking for a husband. Time out. You would live with a husband. Time out. You wouldn't tease a husband as to whether or not he's going to have sex, right, with you, because your marriage is sex, sex is marriage. So when you had sex, you would have been married, you would have lived with them, you would have been already trained to be a wife, you would have already been trained to be a husband, and you wouldn't just simply be saying, hey, if you can't take me to get Louis Vuitton, that you ain't no man. But when you have a bad definition, society suffers, because now she's online and she's got 800 and something thousand followers, and she's teaching. I mean, I don't know how many people were on her thing, but it was successful, it was viral. So we talking at least hundreds of thousands of views, if not millions. And she's telling the next generation or her same generation of women, this is what being a wife is, because she thinks in her mind, she was told by a mother who didn't have a husband, she was told that this is what you do to get a husband, or this is what makes a man a husband. He better be able to take care of everything, and you better not be accountable for anything. You said it may not even be her mother, but her great great grandmother speaking. That's a great point, Sabrina. Right? Like, this thing goes deep. It's generational curses. People are giving us over and over again. What are the defined roles? And there were some gentlemen that I heard react to the video, and I don't know if I 100% agree with this, but I get the point. They were saying that she's not even a prostitute at this point, right? When she's doing this to a guy, because a prostitute at least is honest. Like, I'm gonna give you a service for what you pay. But she was actually trying to say, well, sometimes you got to give him whatever, whatever. But then a lot of times you're going to tease him with whatever, whatever, and see how long you can tease him until you have to give it up, because you don't just want to be known as, you know, a prostitute. So they were saying she's actually worse than a prostitute, because she actually is lying about the fact that she'll consummate, even though I don't think that we should have relationships like that where you dating people just to try and lay down with them. And I don't think any woman or man, if you're a woman out here and you dealing with a dude that you think is nice and pretty and fine and all this, and he keeps stringing you along, like, that's a bad relationship. And if you vice versa, if you are a man and you dealing with somebody who's stringing you along, this and that or whatever, and abusing you, abuse is just abnormal usage. How you doing, Yvette? Right? Then it's wrong on either way. You said she needs to go live with Louis. Right. And so, yeah, exactly. We get bad examples. Matter of fact, the Bible sometimes uses a term in the King James Version, especially the 1611 of King James Version. It'll actually use a term sometimes, not even example, it'll call it an ensample. Right. And she's equating her value to money only. And people don't comprehend. My wife gives me things that money cannot buy. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. No romance without finance, saying by women in my family. Yeah. And by the way, romance isn't what you want. We don't want to be romantic. Romance is Roman antics. See how society is defined? Ensample. Ensample is Ensample. So ensample. Ensample, it literally means somebody samples. We should be an ensample. So somebody should be able to take a sample of you, like a demo tape, like a mixtape. Almost. You don't have an album yet, but I can take your demo and I can listen to what you sound like and go, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I'm assigning this person because they must, if this is just the demo and it sounds like this, then man, I can't wait to hear, what the whole thing sounds like if I put some money into it. You said you held back a sleeping woman because you deeply loved her and you knew she was going to school and you didn't want to interfere her college career. A sleeping woman? I don't. You held back a sleeping woman because you deeply loved her and you knew she was going to school and didn't want to interfere. I don't know what sleeping woman is. I'm sorry. I don't comprehend that part of it. If you can connect the dots for me a little bit, is it Z to be true? But this is the reality, is like we are moving a lot of times. And you said you had you had an opportunity to go to bed with her, but your respect for her, you didn't. Amen. And not just that, I think we should respect everybody like that. Held back from sleeping with a woman. Right. Okay. I got you. So, so yeah, when you're dealing with these things, like, you got to comprehend these roles are not defined. These roles are not defined. And so now we're trying to have a definite marriage, create definite children. How you doing, Cash? Create a definite lifestyle. How you doing, Sister Shima? Create a definite place of security, but we don't have a definition. It's not definite. It's not defined. It was fine the way it was. We've deconstructed it, and what was fine, defined it, so it's no longer definite. And then we've redefined it over and over again. And now we got to go through a process of refining the truth of society. Until over time, gender role has changed from its origin for different social reasons. Well, really, even gender role, right? Remember the word gender, jancha. When you look at it in its original sense, right? We've wrestled not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the origin of what these things meant. How you doing, Prince? What's happened is that gender means style. That's all gender means. It's talking about the style. And when we put a gender or a jancha, right? Because jancha is the same thing as like genre. So there's genres of music. There's genre of jazz. And so if I play jazz, depending on what, within the genre, is it swung? Is it a hard swing? Is it a soft swing? Is it going to be extremely fast? Is it going, when I'm 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, is it there? Is it going to be jazz fusion? That right now I'm messing with the genre, and I'm putting different genres or genders together. So now, but in order to, right, so now the gloves are off. I can kind of do a lot of stuff. I'm breaking the rules. It might sound great, but there's something, but I can't call it jazz anymore. There's classical music, the genre of classical music, right? A gender or a genre of music that came from West Africa, then made its way up through Moors to be able to be taken to universities that were created in Spain. Right, at one point, 11 out of 13 universities in Europe were in Spain, where the Moors were, and then eventually they started spreading to other places. Classical music, and so if you're not careful, you'll think that the gender or genre of music that's called classical only exists as far as like certain names, Bach, Wagner, you know, Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, a lot of people, and you'll think, okay, that's all there is. But if you don't study, you don't comprehend. There's a style. This is a style that came from a different music. Well, it's the same thing. It's a cultural thing. There's a reason why. Like for example, the chord structure is going to be the same. We talked about chord structure a while back. The chord structure is going to be the same in music. A C major 7, right? I don't even think I have, yeah, I don't have this turned on right now. Here, let me see if I can turn it. But a C major 7, or let me say it's, yeah, it's not turned on right now. Let me see real quick. Right. But, oh, yeah, I don't know what's going on. Okay. I don't have the power's not, I don't know why it's not coming on or whatever. I don't have time to figure it out on the keyboard. But basically, if you're dealing with a C7 or C major 7 or whatever, yeah, you're dealing with something where it's like the gender or genre or the style of something, like it'll be the same chord no matter what. So like if I go, so the style of music, the chord, it's on. Oh, okay. So this right here, and I'm not really sitting at it right, but if I were to do like, so let's do like one, I don't know. So this is a gender. It's all gonna. This is the same chord, right? This is. Gosh, let me switch somewhere else. All the keys don't work on this one. Oh yeah. All right. Wow. I'm gonna have to get a new keyboard at this rate. This more keys stop working. Okay, I don't know. Let's just do something simple. We go. We go. Okay, so that's 1, 4, 5. Get back to 1. It is not working at all. Okay, there we go. So we got 1, 4, 5, 1, right? So if I do this right here, this is that's the chords, right? 1 chord, 4th chord, 5th chord, the 1 chord. All right, now check this out. So that's 1. Then I'm sorry, I'm way far away from the keyboard. I can't do the rhythm. Go back to. Okay, so that's 1, 4, 5, 1. We could say maybe that's more of a classical style. If I'm going, we could say that more of a swung style, maybe more jazzy, even though it's not really, because I can't play what I really want to play on it, right? Same chord, but it's a different genre, it's a different gender, it's a different style. The chord, the truth, if you will, the word, if you will, it's the same word, but when I put in a different gender, it sounds a little different, right? I don't have. And now if I add an extra, yeah, it's not really working. So, but if I it's not working the way I want to. This keyboard, a lot of keys working on it. But so if I go, but watch this. If I go, sorry. right? I changed the rhythm a little bit, and I changed the rhythm. Well, guess what? Now it becomes something else, right? Right. But if I go, not doing the same thing, right? Same chord, it slightly changes the gender. It's gender and genre is just a style, right? All I'm doing is messing with the style. All I'm doing is changing the style, right? So gender is just talking about the style. We don't recognize that, hey, in in Eurocentric culture, or even like in some, I can't reach all the keys I want to reach. Oh, this thing's not working. Let me try it in a different place, right? I don't know. Well, anyways, I think you guys get the point. Unless I like go all the way over there, I'm not gonna be able to play it the way I want or find what keys are working or not. But you get the point, right? That in a different culture, they'll take the same chord structure, but it's gonna be a different genre or gender. That's what, or genre, gender. You're dealing with the genealogy, the culture, right? And thank you, Pearl. I appreciate that. And thank you for all the likes and shares, um, super chats, gifts, etc. We appreciate them. Might need, maybe. I got keyboards other places too. This one's just one that use, but I don't use it that often. Pretty much use it just for lessons with my son. That's it, right? But there's so much stuff as far as style, right? And once again, if you don't control, that's a very great point. That's why we talk about the land of our captivity. If you're in somebody else's land, right, then you're captivated by their genre, right? Their gender. So it's not, gender is not just something that's only to be put on male or female, right? But we focus only on what that, because people are trying to redefine that role. But what that's why it's such a big fight for everybody. Because if we define genders or redefine them, or if we say there's no definition on them, what we're saying is now there's no definition on family. Here's the issue. People don't want to talk about that, but if we have no definition for gender, right? If there's no definition for marriage, then there's no definition for society. P-Tone 97, if you're saying that I haven't answered the question or something like that, I don't know. But I see you talking now. So if you say, why are you muted? I don't know. If we can see what you're saying. So I apologize. I'm a human being. If I can't catch every word that everybody's saying, I apologize. We got on 4 different platforms at the same time. So doing my best. Um, you know, but it's like, it's when we're talking about this, right? Now watch this. Even when somebody says, well, how do you interpret that music? You don't interpret it. You can apply it. You can apply it, but you can't interpret somebody else's music unless you interpret what they meant. Like when you play, and I can't, like I said, I'm not able to sit at the, I might have to reposition myself just for a second, but I don't know if I can switch it where all of y'all can see me at the same time. You know, um, yeah, wow, none of this is working. Yeah, none of this is working. Uh, I don't even, right. So if I play that, you guys know that's Moonlight Sonata. But do you know how to interpret that? Do you know that that's not all of Moonlight Sonata? Do you know where that fits in? You see what I'm saying? How do you define that if you don't know the culture? How do you interpret that? People say, I'm going to interpret that song as this, or this what it means, or he's talking about the moonlight, or blah, blah. How do you interpret that? Do you know that you have to get into the mind of a child that was ahead of his time and look through a child's eyes? Because when Beethoven wrote that song, some people will say he wrote it as early as 3 years old. How do you interpret that song when you hear it? We'll start putting all this other stuff on it, right? And there's a 3-year-old writing a song. What does the term even sonata even mean? Matter of fact, I was playing it too fast. So you know that Moonlight Sonata is actually supposed to be played extremely slow, right? There's a lot of stuff going on there. You're also dealing with a child who's being pushed really, really hard by his father. you know. So there's a lot of stuff that's going into that where you feel that thing because there's a lot of stuff going on, but we'll try to interpret whatever we want. But there's only one interpretation. There's always many applications, but you can't interpret something outside of the way that the person wrote it, right? And so some of it's slow, but then there's also like, yeah, there's three parts. Some of it, like you have like an adagio, you'll have different things that usually go into it, right? He's coming from a different thing culturally. He's speaking to you differently than what a lot of us would know. Same thing is going on with society. We aren't even dealing with the fact that we have a culture and what we say isn't the same as what somebody else says. How we feel about something is not the way that somebody else feels about it. The love that we show somebody is not based upon what somebody else showed us. There's a culture that we're carrying. First and foremost, are you carrying a culture that benefits you? But secondly, are you carrying even your culture? Do you know what that is? You said you wish you'd go into why Kemetic people worship devils. Um, I mean, that's a loaded question. That's a loaded subject. We're not really talking about that today. We might pop up on some of that today, though, for sure. Said in some relationships, men being stay at home dad and the woman working, they're okay with it. Yeah, if that's what your stuff is, but they don't define. Like for example, the Proverbs 31 woman, she has her own business. I'm not saying every woman needs to have their own business, but the Proverbs 31 woman does. It's something that makes her great. And it says that it actually helps her husband to be known in the streets. It says that what she does helps her husband to be known in the streets. So there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you guys define. But once again, he's still, I bet, but even though she goes to work, she still has needs of him. You said you defer we interpret music through our body movement. Well, I mean, if people are saying that, whatever, I would say that you are applying that song to your body movement. I know that because I can be, I don't have my djembe or any congas or anything with me, but I know for a fact that I could be playing music for somebody, and I could be playing music, and there could be a dancer on the floor, and you could be playing, and that dancer's going or whatever. And if you play that 1-1 code right, or if you go like, watch this, something as simple as right. Let me do this. I got my son's little bongos here, whatever. All right, so we. Mm, they're very much so out of tune, but let's pretend this is the bass drum, right? So if you don't know the culture, you might not know where the beat is. But culture is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So now that you got that in your head, if I'm playing with them, this is called the clave. This right here is the clave, right? So if I put that, right, that's culturally saying something. That's a whole part of of Africa and of South America that I'm talking about. Maybe even Cubano, maybe even Cuba that I'm talking about. Just because that beat by itself, I literally just spoke culture, right? But I can also flip it. In their culture, they would dance one way to. They would dance one way to that. Flip that around now. If I go, they would dance completely different. Literally, they would change the whole way they're dancing from this to this, to switching it. All right, they would totally dance different, 100%. If I were to change in the middle of their dancing, I might actually hurt somebody. This is how important culture is. This is how important defining the role is. The male dancer and the female dancer if I did that, would get confused and either stop dancing, might hurt them. There are people who have literally hurt themselves dancing because somebody changed the clave that change the clave could change somebody's life. I'm serious, right? Like people don't know that. And we will have as musicians, there will be some extreme fights on where the clave is supposed to be. Now watch this. If I wanted to take you to Brazil, right? It sounds pretty close to, but that third is delayed just a little bit. So what we were just playing more, right? If I delay the third click, it would be. We would call that a samba, causing them to stumble. Exactly. So now we got a samba. Right? Like we done changed the whole thing up, right? This right here. Akea cola, 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 akea cola, cola, ka. Right? To dun, 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 dun. Like we changed the whole thing up because I delayed the third snap. That's gender. That's jumpshot. That's style. That's the genre. Yeah, girl from Impanema, right? That's I literally changed up a whole style. Now, somebody who's in the music, somebody who plays the clave, somebody who listens for the clave, they know what I did. They know that I just went to a whole different place in the world, right? Just because I changed the rhythm. But when I changed the rhythm, I was speaking, I'm using the same tools, right? Using the same tools that I have. But if I change the rhythm a little, I'm speaking a whole different culture. You have to know how to interpret it in order to know how to dance to it. You're not going to samba the same way you're going to merengue, right? You're not going to salsa the same way that you merengue. Somebody hears salsa, merengue, they go, oh, okay, they're just both Spanish dances. No, first of all, they're not even Spanish, right? Second, right? And if you actually do your research, you'll discover they come from Africa because African people went to different places in the world. This is how we know. When people say stuff like, well, how can you prove that slaves were actually brought all over the world? You can't even prove it. It's like, yeah, I can. I can sing you a song. I can play you a rhythm. I can play you a rhythm. Right? If I change it, right? If I do this, you call this house music. Right? This also, though, turn into what? Yeah. So, use it as house. But guess who else copied off of that? That before it was house music, guess where they got that from? It's a march. John Philip Sousa, or Sousa, as you would call him. It's a march. On Wisconsin, y'all hear the football game sometimes. That's Africa. But if I take it somewhere else and I just change it a tiny bit and I put something over it, you say, oh, that's a whole different culture, don't you? Because they took the same ingredient, but it's a style. So could I explain then how come the narrative couldn't change as Africans when we were invaded? I don't comprehend. What narrative are you talking about? Which idealism are we speaking on? We're talking about, definition of society, but I guess that fits in. So what are you trying to get me to deal with or whatever? Where are you saying, like, why can I explain how come the narrative couldn't change as Africans when we were invaded? Which narrative couldn't change? What narrative, what ideal are we speaking on? Because that's what an ideal is when somebody's creating a narrative for themselves. So what ideal are we speaking on? I'm not sure where that's coming from and what we're talking about, or how to put it with what we're talking about, if you don't mind helping me with that. But, when we're dealing with this stuff, we're literally just speaking culture. Well, the house came from disco and this, but I'm just saying it comes from other places. You said when they came to Africa for our riches and resources, why can't we defend ourselves? Well, there's a lot of stuff that came on. Number one, we could defend ourselves. Defending ourselves wasn't necessarily the issue. It's the definition of society. We had a bad we had a lot of great things going on with this, but our definition for society was messed up. So we didn't define ourselves as a brotherhood. Not at that point. So when you fighting against each other and somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I'll give you guns if you fight this person," or "Hey, I'll give you this, you value this, okay, no problem. I'll give you this so you can not only defeat your enemies, but tell us where they are and we'll make sure that we get them. Matter of fact, help us to get them. Help us to make slaves out of them." We didn't use the term slaves the way that they did, and we weren't thinking chattel slavery, and we weren't thinking that they were going to move another group of people somewhere else. But the defending of ourselves wasn't the problem. You know that women, that's where the whole thing of Amazons being white and Wonder Woman and all that comes from. Don't forget that there were African tribes where it was nothing but women that fought against Italy, beat the brakes off them, and did so without guns. Don't forget that Kush, still to this day, not an empire the way it was, but Kush has never really been like invaded like that. Ethiopia, South Sudan, certain places, South Sudan, stuff like that, never really been invaded like that. But never really had colonization take the same. Now, obviously, Ethiopia had some of the effects of like Marxism and stuff. So in a different way, you could say they got broke down for a minute. But Ethiopia's never really been conquered like that. Why? Because they were fighting people. Don't forget that people during World War I and II tried to fight against people in Ethiopia, and they had guns in certain places, but there were places where they beat them up with spears and arrows and things of that nature. The problem was more so that we weren't aligned as a people. And we didn't believe that we needed to make sure that we were one. You had people that could defend themselves very well, but oftentimes fought against one another. Now, Rome, if you want to go back even to the times of Rome, now that's a whole different discussion. But you got to comprehend too, you're dealing with a Eurocentric mind, not yours, but a Eurocentric mindset, right? So you got Romans who were raised off of fighting and being wolf-like in behavior, and that's what their whole society was based on. And then Europe, who tried to say, because remember, Europe just means anything that belonged to Rome. So Europeans tried to say that they were the next Romans. You have a whole bunch of them. They're trying to conquer each other. Then they look over at people, and our goal wasn't necessarily to be vicious fighters and to outfight and therefore outlast everybody else. We believed in some form of everybody can have their own. We can, in that sense, work together. But we weren't really thinking of as far as Alkebulan or Africa or Negro or Negus or Negus or Niger, all being connected as one. We can keep on going, Zulu, people of Queen Nzinga, Angola, the original Ghana or now Ghana as it is. That was something that was very powerful for somebody like a Kwame Nkrumah to come by and say that all Africa should start working together as one. Sankofa. Very powerful. That's why they killed that brother off, and got his best friend to do it. And but Sankofa, very important brother to study. PFO Lumumba today, very important brother to study. I forget the sister's name. Forgive me. I see her face, the glasses. I see her. I see her face and everything. Great elder right now. It'll come to me if it's necessary. It'll be brought to my remembrance. But powerful people out there speaking at this, but we didn't do that as a diaspora. Unfortunately, we didn't make the main thing the main thing. So when you're not ready to defend yourself, when you're not thinking of coming together, is it Farzia? I don't know if that's her name. But if you're not willing to come together, you're gonna have a lot. You said, did we sell ourselves out, or said smaller standards for who you were? Yeah, I mean, I think we're saying the same thing. I think we're trying to redefine it or whatever. But if like let's put it in today's standards. Brooklyn, stand up. Bronx in the house. Don't forget about Staten Island. Like Queens. You know what I'm saying? Like at some point, if New York is important, make New York important and make the diaspora exist. But cats is killing each other off of street corners. Oh, buenos días. Gracias, buenos días. ¿Cómo está? Mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Gracias. Come on in. Viens. Well, actually, viens en français. But what? Vamos, vamonos. Let's go. Let's get into it. He said, society, since we have no record of Israel, how can we follow the culture? Canaanites / Phoenicians. Well, first of all, even when you talk about a Phoenician, what is a phonetic person? If we're going to define these roles, right? What is a phonetic? What does phonetic mean? What does Phoenician mean? Who did the Phoenicians say they were? Right? You hitting it on the nail, right? Canaanite, Canav, really. Canav, which are the Canaanites, Phoenicians, which were Canaanites mixed with Israelites. By the way, the Phoenicians told you they were mixed with Israel and Canaan. Um, Carthaginians, they told you that they were Phoenicians. That's why it was the Punic Wars. You called it the Punic Wars, but that's because Romans can't pronounce anything outside their culture. They don't care to. They call anybody who doesn't speak their languages that they feel are powerful, they call them barbarians. So just like we say when somebody speaks, they just go blah 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 blah, right? They would say bar 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 bar. So that's why they call people barbarians. We don't even care about you to learn your language enough. That's what they were basically saying. Bar, 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 you're a barbarian. Blah, 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 blah. Well, um, they didn't say Punic, right? But it was never Punic. It was Punic Wars. And because it was never Phoenician, but it was Punician. Panician. Pana. Panak. Panas. Panak. Right? We were Phoenician. The Phoenicians, and we know what Hannibal looked like because his face is on a coin. We know he was a very dark-skinned brother, right? Thick lips and everything. We know what he looked like. And he said he was Phoenician. The Phoenicians said they were Canaanites and Israelites. So if that's what they look like, we know what they look like. We know that Yahshua himself, he was hidden. And after Hannibal and Hannibal, right? But after Hannibal, or even Hannibal, but after that, we know that he was hidden after Hannibal and the fight in the Punic Wars and all that. We know he was hidden in Kemet, which means that the Kemetic people, the community he was hidden in, they got it look like what the Israelites and the Canaanites and the Phoenicians look like as well. You said, do I believe we all came from one place or multiple pockets of creation? I believe in there's one creation. We've had this discussion. If you want to go deeper into it, if you go on the YouTube channel, we have a thing called Haven't Been Led as We Believe, and we talk about that somewhat. But long story short, there are Genesis 1, there are a bunch of us made at the time, but then the ones that survive come through Noah. Noah comes from Genesis 2, Adam, right? Through that lineage. He's not in Genesis 2, but you know what I'm saying? His lineage goes back to Genesis 2, Adam, and or who people call Eve. And basically through there you have a lineage, and so there's a mix of a lot of people, which is why we keep saying that there's DNA of people, but we can't account for it. Why can't we account of it? Well, we can't account for it because the DNA comes from people that actually existed outside of Adam. When Cain got married not to his sister. It didn't say he married his sister. It said he married a woman and then went somewhere else and established a camp or a new way of life, right? So we got to figure out who's defining our society. Right, but I want to come back. We're getting a little further away. If I'm not careful, we're going to get too far away to where we're not staying on track. Right? You said, can I say the names again slowly of the man killed by his friend? Oh, I don't remember what I was talking about. The man killed by his friend. I don't remember what I was talking about. Oh, Kwame, 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 and Nkrumah. Nkrumah. You said, I think only Noah and his family survived. Well, in multiple cultures, a lot of them talk about Noah and his family surviving. There are also other people who talk about the flood, though. But I think there's other cultures that do say it. Like, for example, people in China, if you look back at ancient language and their pictographs, we would call them pictographs, their characters, etc. They will tell you stuff like their word for family is like 8 people together on a boat in water. They'll say things like Eden is west of, basically, like man goes west, because they're east, or Eden is east of them, so they traveled west. There's a lot of different things like that we can look up in a lot of different cultures and stuff. But you can also say, yeah, there's a lot of people that talk about how the universe came into existence. There's people that say that you didn't need to have any kind of spiritual being, but even all of them speak of a universe. The word universe is a spoken sentence. So if you're saying that, how dare I speak down to somebody else's culture because I don't agree with everything they say or whatever, That's not what I'm doing. I'm saying, according to our culture, this is what we believe. Haven't been led as we believe. If and I have been somebody who's traveled and studied and talked to a lot of different people, and at one point didn't believe what I say now. So, you know, if you're, I'm not here to say that you have to agree with everything I say. I don't believe that everybody has to agree. you know. Well, I mean, you can laugh at there's whole books written on it by Chinese people, so go look up what they say about their culture and how they used to believe in Shangdi and how they really used to believe and use the words Noah and Sham and Ham and Yapat, which you call Japheth, and go down the list of things like that and how they still have temples to this day that mirror the temples that were in Israel. You can go visit for yourself like that. That's stuff that's just there. But once again, I don't go into worrying about how everybody tries to redefine what these things are. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go and you define it. You go and look up what's there and how these people tell you about their story. You go look at what people tell you, right? But that, once again, if there's no define, like if we keep doing this thing, everybody has to be telling truth. Like, for example, yes, somebody reads a Bible, and we talk about this one all the time. Somebody reads a Bible. You said, was there someone named Sankofa? Yeah, Sankofa is, if you look up, Sankofa is, I'm getting my countries mixed up now. I can't remember which country exactly he is, but he was a powerful leader. I want to say Northwest Africa. I feel like I'm off. But he was a powerful leader, and he got killed basically by his friend. Oh, the friend. The friend, I'm sorry, that's the one, Sankofa. I said Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah got messed over by some of the people that thought to be his friend. My bad. Sankofa is who you were asking about. Sankofa, Sankofa. So Sankofa, that's who it was. Sorry, Sankofa. Thank you for that. Right, but it's a lot of different things that are going on that we have defined by other people who have taken over and told you. So, like, for example, once again, we use this one all the time. People say firmament. Firmament is a Greek god. Is a deist. It's a deity. Gaia is supposed to be the Big Bang in Greco-Roman society, or at least in Greek society, right? That's their gender. That's their style. Gaia, Big Bang. So when people talk about a Big Bang, they're just talking about Gaia. Like, we think that this is some new thing or some newish thing or whatever, where people just in the last couple hundred years are now becoming so smart and intelligent. All they're doing is telling you a Greek story. Gaia is the Big Bang. There was nothing before Gaia, and then Gaia gave birth to herself. What is the Big Bang? Go look up the theories of the Big Bang, because there's multiple theories, and all of them are theories. None of them can be proven, right? But go look up the theory of Big Bang. Go look up what the Big Bang is. Right? Go look up the theory of the Big Bang. When you look up the theory of the Big Bang, you will discover that it basically now, like, it's kept on changing. But basically, they tell you that pretty much there was nothing, and nothing gave birth to something. Now, the newest one that they do is they say, okay, there's always an explosion, the Big Bang, and the universe extends and extends and extends throughout space. But then all of a sudden something happens where it all reverses randomly and starts coming back to each other. And then it gets back to nothing, and then it blows up again. And that's just something that's going to happen eternally. So, right, there's also something called the intelligent design. They'll say that life evolves and it designs itself. It has intelligence. However, life is not, life is smart enough to take care of itself. Therefore, there's no need for Elohim or for Yahweh Elohim, right? And then, there's a whole bunch of theories out there, right? But you're having a concept. They're just talking about Greek mythology. That's all they're talking about. How can somebody become stronger and stronger and stronger? We just talking about Heracles. You call him Hercules because Hercules is the Roman name. Because Romans, once again, even though they took over the Greeks, they didn't care to learn their language. Barbarians, bar. But his name is Heracles, and Heracles is half man, half. He's a demigod. That's why you talk about Jesus instead of Yahshua, because Jesus is half man, half Zeus. He's supposed to be a demigod. There's a nickname given to him by Pontius Pilate that didn't know how to describe him. It's right there in the Bible. right? But we're taking someone else's culture, and we don't know how to define what's for us. If you don't know how to define that, now what happens in your home, if you're sitting up there trying to talk about freedom from oppression, but you're using the oppressor's words and systems and culture. You said that's with religion, science relies on faith. Well, true. Religion, even. What does religion mean? Religion is what? A legion of people who repetitively do the same thing. You know? What is religion? That's what it is. So yeah, it requires faith. It requires faith to be able to go to work. I'm going to go to work, and I have faith that if I go, the computer system's going to work to where they're going to put numbers in my account, and those numbers in that account are supposed to mean that I have cash, and the cash that I'm going to be given, the cash is supposed to basically just represent gold and silver, but the problem, there's no gold or silver there. But I have faith that even though there's nothing to back up my cash, that my cash has value. Since I have faith and other people have faith in it, it's called currency. Currency just means that we have agreed that this thing can be used to be a middleman, to be a media, to be a medium, to be able to trade from one thing to the other, or to get something from one person to another. Right? Cash is theoretical. Cash is a theory. Right? There's this theory out there that even if we don't have money, I'm going to give you this piece of paper, a promissory note. You know, we used to write checks and stuff. You know, I'm going to give you this promissory note, this C note, this cash, this check. I'm going to give you this promise, right? That something's supposed to be there. When I came from my mother, I guess you're trying to say, what did I call myself? My father called himself a Baptist. My mother called herself a Jehovah's Witness. I didn't call myself anything when I came from my mother. I was defined by what they said that I was. And as I got older, my mother allowed me, after she taught me how to study, she allowed me to be able to find truth for myself. But she made sure that she taught me the religion of study. What I do, what people who are prominent in studying do as a legion repetitively. She taught me that. And then she said, find truth. And then she passed away. You said, I think what it boils down to is the word of Elohim was defiled and we had to suffer, but where does it with the experience that man has today? And they know why haven't the narrative changed? I'm sorry, you'll have to help me again. True, be true. I don't know if you're like speaking into the phone or something, if it's doing an auto correct, or I know you're trying to speak. Where does the narrative change end? Or where does it? Okay, maybe it came out. No, I think. Hold on. I think where it all boils down to the word of Elohim was defiled, and we had to suffer. But where does it end? With experience that man has today, they know how. Why hasn't the narrative changed? I think that's what we're saying, right? You said you thought religion after birth. So my question was, my religion before. If you're saying, what do I call myself? I call myself a follower of the way. If you're saying, like I just said, born to a father that was a Baptist, mother was a Jehovah's Witness. Basically, about 13, 14, I started asking questions, or before that, and I kept getting told to shut up, and I stopped going and hanging around, and I started getting some other stuff, and my mother released me from something that I felt was going to hurt me, or she must have felt that was going to hurt me, because I was starting to get some other things since my faith was broken and things like that. If that's what you're saying. So then became agnostic, started going to church, started trying to become a Christian, realized real quick Christianity didn't necessarily make sense all the way because it was mystical, but was never practical. Then from there went into talking about the kingdom, then started actually researching my family to figure out where I was from, certain things that were actually hidden from us, because like a lot of people who come over and are, immigrants or whatever, a lot of people come over from other places and they don't really want to sometimes even teach everybody everything about where they come from, because they just want you to fit in. Found out a few things about myself, went back and traveled to different places, tribes, found out about Cherokee, found out about Taino, found out about Omekshi, found out from people about Gullah, found out from people about Shwi, Ashanti Shwi, Yashleel, Negro, West Africa, so to speak, Ghana, all that. And then have developed into what I am today. I don't know if I ultimately had a thing that I had to be called in my whole humanity. I don't think I ever, but now, I guess I would say I'm a follower of the way. Yeah, and Jehovah's Witnesses do have an excellent study habit. You said man gave us religion. Once again, if you're going off of that role, if you're going off of the word religion has to mean what somebody calls yourself or what they say, but everybody has religion. If you drink coffee every rising, like I don't drink coffee, so I'm not a religious coffee drinker. I can drink it once, but it's not my religion. Somebody who drinks coffee every day, that's a religious experience by definition. We make it so mystical that we miss the practicality in it. I'm sorry, you said so I have Carolinian blood. Yes, I definitely do. Definitely do. So yeah, Carolinian blood as far as the people of Carolina, not of Caroline the Queen, but of actual the people who were there before it was called before it was called Carolina, then broken into North and South Carolina. How you doing, Abdullah? Thanks for being on. Right. So yeah, so there's a lot of man-made religions. Right. There are a lot of man-made religions. There are a lot of man-made religions. There are a lot of man-made religions. It doesn't mean that like there's no great religion. Religion is what you do every day with the legion of people. We do this every day. I would say that that's a great religion. But if somebody says name this religion, I don't know if this religion has a name. We come on the live. It's a live session. If you want to call the religion something, it's a live session. That's the actual. If we actually define it as what it is. For real, you going to your job every day. Everybody getting ready to go to your job. Guess what you about to do? Religion. It's a religious experience. If you pray every day, that's a religious experience. I'm talking about just by the name. See, once again, we are allowing other people to dictate to us. They say what religion is, but you can look at the word religion. It's not that hard etymology wise. Like we can see legion. We know that the letter E and the letter I are interchangeable. So that's why they don't even say like, it's not even religion. Or it's not, it's not even religion. It's not religion. It's religion. Because I and E are interchangeable. So when you see an I, you'll say it like an E sometimes because they interchange. That's a cultural thing. So we know what religion is. Well, legion is the name of the demon that was cast out. So people will go, see, so all legion, but there were legions that fought for the Most High. This legion fought for the devil. But let's not twist it. You see what I'm saying? Let's not make it to where now. It's like, for example, in all these churches, see how like the definition of society. Watch this. So let's go into the society of church, if you will, of churches. You ready? Why is it that Baptists call themselves Baptists? I mean, why do you have to be the Baptist church? Well, you call yourself Baptist because you say you only have your way of doing baptism is the only true way of baptism. So therefore, everybody else is not as great as you if they're not a Baptist. Why do people call themselves Methodist? They call themselves Methodist because they're trying to say our legion, our repetitive legion of method, they have a methodology. So they say their Methodists are great. Would it surprise some of you that there's a lot of Methodist churches that actually baptize their babies the same way that the Roman Catholic Church does? Would that surprise some of you? Because you think that there's a whole different religion, but they're not saying everything is different. They're just saying we do this particular thing different. So we call ourselves a different religion. We repetitively do something different as a legion. But they said their methodology is better than yours. They actually got into lunar worship and methodology and Methodist, right? They say your religiosity is better than that. They say their method is better than yours. What about Kojic, Church of God in Christ? We say that we worship him better than everybody. I've heard singers singing. They're on albums, right? I'm trying to remember the one, not open the door, the floodgates of heaven. That's Bishop Morton. I can't remember the name of the song, but there's a guy that starts off that said, that song, consuming fire, sweet perfume, his awesome presence. Sorry, my voice is gone. Fills this room. This is holy ground. That one, right? He starts off on that song, by talking about how he's so glad that he's not in the Baptist faith, because in Church of God in Christ, they actually know how to worship the Most High. Automatically clashing by somebody else's definition of religion, when what do you do as a legion repetitively should be what it is. If Christ, watch this. Why are there denominations? What is even denominated? What is a denominator? Why is it important that the denominations are different? Why is that such a key thing to us being able to change and realize that, hey, wait a minute, we got these denominations in the wrong place? What is defining your society? Societies break up, kingdoms break apart. Israel breaks apart when we're so busy trying to argue over the gender or the genre, the style. You just talking about the style of the religion. You just talking about what you guys do as a legion, right? What is a denominator? Somebody help me out. What is a denominator? We've talked about this stuff before. What is a denominator? Why is your denomination important? Somebody talk back to me. Somebody give me something in the chat. Or if you want to call them, whatever. Like, what does it mean if somebody says, I have a denominator? I am a denominator. I have a denominator. I have what is a denominator? Yeah, legion is used in the military context. Yeah. So religion is military legion doing something over and over again. So denominator is what we use in fractions, and it can divide, right? But it doesn't divide if something is done correctly. A legion, commonality, a common base, or sorry, denominator, common by common base, right? What is let's do this. What is a numerator? A common link. Okay, what is a numerator? In math, it is the whole. So, well, a denominator does not necessarily mean it's the whole. It can make something the whole, but we have to see something first. What is a denominator? I mean, I'm sorry, we have denominator. What is a numerator? Numerator, okay, a portion of the denominator. That's great. And that's really when people say there are different denominations, they're lying. I like that, ATA. Let's just stay with that. A lot of people, they're lying when they say there are different denominations. You're not different denominations. What you are is you're different numerators. You're different numerations, if you will. You're different numerators. That's really what's going on. You said a house divided, denomination equals what's divided upon. Well, the denominator is what you divide or test the numerator by. Can we just make it plain? Let's make it plain. Let's stop. Once again, we don't want to make it too mystical. We're talking about defining society. Let's make this thing plain. Okay? If I have a denominator, the denominator is ultimately going to test the numerator to tell me what the value of it is. The denominator is what tests the numerator. If you tell me that the numerator is Baptist church, you tell me it's Kojic church, you tell me it's Presbyterian, you tell me it's Roman Catholic, you tell me it's Jehovah's Witness, you tell me it's Mormon, whatever it is, the numerator, I got to test it by the denominator. All right? I got to test it by the denominator, correct? Can we agree? Right? Is that agreeable? Is that agreeable? Right? That's agreed. Okay. All right. So the denominator is going to test whatever the numerator is to tell me what the holistic value is. Is it holy or not? Is it holy or not? Right? That denominator is going to tell me, is it whole? Is it holy or not? Whatever you put as a numerator is going to tell me. So watch this. So by the same thing, y'all been with us long enough, so some of you probably already know where we're going. But why is it that 1 + 1 = 2? With that being said, why is it that 1 + 1 = 2? All that stuff we just said, you tell me, why does 1 + 1 = 2? The denominator is going to test the numerator. So now why does 1 + 1 = 2? What does that even mean? See, because you're only thinking about the numerator, thinking that you're talking about a denominator. The denominator, you usually don't even think about. But if the denominator is not the same, we can't get to adding the numerator. You're adding a whole number, which is 1/1 plus 1/1, and you're saying that equates to 2/1. But you just think 1 + 1 = 2. We don't even think denominator, because but what's happening is, what we're saying is, if they don't carry the same denominator or same denomination, then they don't add up at all. Did you catch that? If they don't have the same denominator, they don't add up. This is why Presbyterian versus Kojic, it don't add up. You can do whatever you want and get to the same Elohim. It don't add up, because Elohim is what? Yahweh is what? Yashvah is what? Ravak HaKodesh, she is what? They are the denominator, period. What do you call yourself? You talking about the numerator. I need to first make sure that the denominator is correct. The authority is correct. The chief cornerstone is correct. The foundation is correct. That's the denominator. That's the denomination. We think denomination, it means the numerator. No, the numerator is all this stuff you arguing over. First Baptist, Second Baptist, Third Baptist. Right? That's what you arguing. Allah Akbar versus, Elohim Shaddad. You arguing the numerator, and you've missed the denominator. Who's the one that spoke the universe into existence? Fall on that. Everything else doesn't even add up if you don't got that correct. The defined roles. We're arguing about stuff that doesn't even make. Look, oh well, why didn't we get together? Why didn't we do this? This is this. This is that. All these different things. Denominator. What's the denominator? Nicodemus comes in the middle of the night. Man, Yashua, you the man. You got all these things going on. You amazing. You great. You're incredible. You're this. You're that. He said, Nicodemus, stop talking to me. Unless you're born again, the denominator ain't the same. This conversation don't add up. That's what he said. You try to praise me, and you honor me with your lips. You praise me with your lips. You honor me with your mouth, but your heart is far from me, Nicodemus. Like your denominator resolved. We cannot continue this. He said, is it kind of like denominator equals foundation, which is found in the variable of culture? You just put a lot in there. You hit me with that variable piece. I got to think a little more. But in a sense, yeah. But there, the answer. But watch this. The answer cannot be. We cannot get the answer if we cannot have. Long story short, we cannot get the answer if we cannot have the actual same denominator. Period. Like the denominator, but we're arguing the numerator. We're arguing what clothes are you supposed to wear at church. Like think about how messed up our definitions are. The clothing matters more than the word. You hear what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying? We're talking about baptizing people when we meet up in different places, and people are up here. Well, are we going to be wearing robes and blah blah this and that? Why? Because that's something that somebody has told you before so much that you think of that as being of extreme importance. If I see if I got to baptize you in a bathtub, we're gonna baptize you, right? That ain't got nothing to do with the denominator. That's the numerator. That's the numerator. Now, I'm not saying the numerator doesn't matter at all. Right? Because we still need the numerator to get the answer. What I'm saying is you can't even start to talk about addition. And basically everything is just going to be addition anyways. Subtraction is just addition. Subtraction is just adding on the number line to the left. Multiplication is just adding a whole bunch of times in one fell swoop. Thank you again for the love, Cherise. Or is this? Yeah, thanks for the love, Cherise. Division. It's just us finding a way to be able to subtract, which is on a higher level, which is just basically doing nothing more than doing what? Being able to add going left on a number line. Like we're having all this stuff. Thank you, Robinson. We're having all these different things that we're conversing and talking about, going through this and that or whatever, and we don't have the denominator correct. You want to talk about the African diaspora? What's the denominator for the African diaspora? We don't need to be about anything, any religion. We don't need to worry about. Then stop talking about the confessions of my aunt. Don't bring it up to me. But you know that we need that. You know that's part of the culture, don't you? Righteousness. Righteousness means what? Legal standing, right? Legal standing, which means what? You got to be in tune with law. You know, you can't be Afrocentric and sit there and be telling me about Kemet and you don't know how Kemet's tree works. You don't know about how melanin works. You don't know about the pineal gland. You still sitting up there telling me about neutrons and don't even know that neutrons are a myth. Neutrons are alive. Neutrons are a theory. Nobody has ever seen a neutron under a microscope, but you still sitting here using Afrocentric stuff talking about 666 and protons, electrons, neutrons. There's no such thing as neutrons. Even if there was, it's 600, three score and six. 666 is different than three sets of sixes. Wow. Hey, I like that, Dawn. Denominator, bottom line, period. Right. Like, it don't matter what you want to do. You and talking to me about Japan. Well, how you going to talk about Japan without talking about that one drop rule? Do you know what you see what I'm saying? Like, how are we gonna talk about Japan and totally act like there's no Bantu connection? How are we gonna talk about China and Mongolia and act like there's no Bantu connection? How are we gonna talk about India and act like there's no Mongolian therefore a Bantu connection? You see what I'm saying? Like, if we're gonna talk about it, let's get a denominator straight first. What do you believe? What is actually true? What is not his story? What is your story? We get into arguments, you don't even know your story. What is it that caused Toussaint Louverture? What is it that caused him to go ahead and say, "I'm going to fight"? Was it not that he read about Moses and said, "That's me"? He found when we talk about our ancestors, he found his ancestor real enough to fight. But we sitting up here arguing whether he's our ancestor or not. Stop talking about Haiti, and you can't talk about Moses. Don't talk about Jean Jacques and Duddy Bookman and the priestess that was out there and the blood that they shed and the blood pact that they made before they shed the blood, and 40% of our women out there fighting to the death, and people willing to put their arms inside cannons and have their arms blown to smithereens to make sure that the cannons were jammed and that they couldn't go on. Right? How you gonna speak on that stuff and you don't even know? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying I know everything, but that's why I'm very big on origin. We having conversation and we don't know denominator. Everything's hanging on the origin. People say the law doesn't matter because Christ said just love your neighbor and love Elohim, love your neighbor. Those are the only two laws. You a lie. You a lie. And hey, if it makes you upset, truth, you're gonna get truth today. You a lie. You know why you a lie? Because you skipping over on purpose what it says fully. He didn't say these are the only two laws. He never came close to saying that. He said on those two hang all the other commandments. That means the commandments didn't go nowhere. He said that's the two. And if you do some research on that, you discover he was not only quoting Deuteronomy 6:4, but he was really quoting Exodus chapter 20. He was quoting Exodus chapter 20 because he was quoting the 10 commandments and put them in two. The first four commandments talk about Elohim, love him with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. The second, like it is this, to love your neighbor as yourself. The next six talk about loving your neighbor, your parents, honor your father and your mother. Don't lie to your neighbor. Don't steal from your neighbor. Don't commit adultery with your neighbor. Don't covet what your neighbor has, and don't commit murder on your neighbor. He literally told you that all the other commandments hang on those. That the first 10 commandments are the foundation of the next commandments to come, then that makes perfect sense. Right? But if you don't understand the origin of the culture of something, you missed all that. Who's defining your family today? Who's defining where you come from? Do you even know the difference between a wife and a woman? Or do you think that because you walk down the aisle in somebody else's culture, you walk down the aisle, you wore a white dress, you think that white's supposed to mean that you're chaste and pure? You think white's a color. You don't even know white's not even a color. But you think that white is a color. And therefore, since you think that white's a color, you think that it makes you chaste and pure. And that's what you need to get married in. And you're going to do everything the way that you saw your girlfriend get it done. Everything you were doing when you were playing with little Barbie dolls and stuff. And you played with Ken, and Ken did whatever Barbie told him to do. And Ken had to wear Barbie type clothes and all that stuff. Then all of a sudden you get to your husband, you try to treat him like Ken. And he says, my name ain't Ken. My name is Kofi. And you're like, what? you know? But I don't know about Kofi. I know about Ken. Why don't you act like Ken? You put the big eyes on there. I don't know. You tell me, Cash. Who is it that we're referring to? Who originally wrote them? If you're gonna go to the whole thing of Ma'at and all that stuff or whatever, as if Kemet was the first people to do that too. We gotta get to a place where we get past that. But I don't know. There's a whole bunch of places we can go. But even if you look at it, you know, for them to have 10 basic ways of doing it, but to honor each other. But even those first 4 commandments, they don't really fit in with the Ma'at thing necessarily, or the other places that we can go as far as if we want to go to some things that are now Talmudic and things like that, where they get their stuff from, even Assyrian, and even go past Assyrian and stuff. We're not necessarily having the same conversation, but people will assume so. Like Amat and Ma'at as if they're the same thing, things of that nature. So even if we go there, they're not necessarily the same, but we act like, hey, Kemet is the first. Don't forget Kemet crossed out everything that their brother did. Kemet wrote out everything. Kemet crossed out everything that Cush did. Well, no, I mean, if you want to say, well, who wrote it? You already know what my answer is. If we're going to play that game, right? We don't have to play that game with each other. We can make the main thing the main thing. What I would say to you is that before we go there, let's not do the thing of just saying that everything even originated in Kemet, because that's a lie, right? Kemet crossed out the name of Cushitic Netchers, not gods, because in Kemet, I'm part Kemetic. In Kemet, we don't say God, because God is somebody else's culture. We don't deal with gods. We deal with Netchers. And those Netchers, by the way, and I'm not even saying it correctly, right? But those Netchers, they were actually crossed out versions of Cush did. So, we can get into a deeper thing of that, but we have to be careful even in that just because it's Kemet Street doesn't mean that everybody in Kemet was always righteous themselves. Just because you're black doesn't mean you're righteous. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I'm saying, we have to be careful. There's always culture. You said you with it because it causes some people to shake, right? So we, you say need more books. Hey, I need more books. Always need more books. What I'm saying is, it's like we're having this conversation about the numerator and acting like it's the denominator. You said Ptolemy did that. Ptolemy didn't do that. That existed before Ptolemy. Ptolemy did it too. The Greeks did it too. But before the Greeks did it, Kemet did it to Cush. Ptolemy crossed out deities and crossed out with the name of the, whatever you call those, Virgo and Pisces and Libra and Leo and all that stuff. And he crossed that out. Sure. And did a lot of stuff that he crossed out and said was his. And before he did it, it was actually done by the Macedonian king, who we now think of the Greek king, Alexander. Right. So we know it was done, and we know that when you're dealing with Rome and you're dealing with Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, Mark Antony and Cleopatra, zodiac signs. Thank you. I don't really go by them, but people, there's some truth to them and stuff for sure. But I just don't pay attention to them that much. It's not part of my knowledge base. But yeah, like if you look back at that, you can see that they changed it before even they did. Thank you, Tulips. I still have a long way to go. I'm not there yet, right? But this is what we're saying. We're having a conversation, an argument about denomination, or at least we think we do. But we're talking about the numerator. What is this stuff based on? What is it based on? Who is it based on? Whose culture is it based on? I believe in the universe. When you ask that question, so before them was truth, I believe in the universe, and the universe is a verse spoken sentence. So I believe in somebody had to speak it into existence, right? Obviously, we're not agreeing on who spoke it into existence, or maybe you don't agree that anybody spoke it into existence. But I don't believe you can talk about universal law and skip over the fact that you got to have somebody speak it into existence. And laws protect rights. Laws don't give rights. We were born with unalienable rights, right? Even the Constitution of the United States of America, as wild as that is, they had to put that in there because even to live a lie, you got to be based on some truth, right? So there's rights that I have that nobody can take away from me unless I give them away. And there's also laws to make sure that I protect myself from giving away those rights. No, I'm not saying that in a sense, I'm not saying that argument is bad. Like, I'm not saying that us have, conversations can be arguments. I'm not saying that argument in a bad way. I'm just saying, like, as far as the clarification that both of us are looking for, because I'm still looking for clarification every day myself. We have to be in a position where we're able to actually start looking at the stuff from the perspective of, first, what is the denominator? What is the foundation of it? I'm not here to tell anybody that Kemet's not important. I'm not here to tell you that Kush is not important. I'm not here to tell you that Put is not important. We don't even talk about Put anymore, or some people say Foot. I'm not here to tell you that Omekshi is not important. I'm not here to tell you, right? I'm not here to tell you that none of them are important. I'm not here to tell you that Ireland's not important. I'm not here to tell you any of it. I'm here to tell you that there's a denominator, and we seem to be glossing over the denominator, and we're trying to add up an equation arguing over numerators without a denominator. And whether we like it or not, the denominator has to be the one that spoke the universe into existence. If that's not the case, then we got to look for something else that exists outside the universe, because you can't talk about universal laws, natural laws, laws of attraction, law of first mention, common law, admiralty law, law of equity, right? Maritime law, whatever law it is, you can't talk about these laws, theoretical laws, whatever, right? Even though there's no such thing, theories have to come out of laws. But nevertheless, even if you want to call it theoretical laws, evolutionary laws, even though I don't even believe in evolution, whatever it is, it's got to be something that protects your rights. And it can't protect your rights if the denominator is going to be glossed over. Who is the denominator? What is the denominator? We're arguing the numerator. What is the denominator? There has to be something, even if it's an agreement. There's some people that believe the concept of a higher power is something that people came up with because they needed to be able to just have something that they could say, this is what binds us together and causes us to live true. I don't agree with it, but even if we have that, at least we have something that we can say as a denominator. So when we make that our denominator, who is it? It's got to be something that's the same. Even the word confession, we've been talking about that word quite a bit. We talked about it for Shabbat Shalom service, right? Even the word confession, it literally means you have to have the same logic. You cannot confess anything if you don't have the same logic. You can't confess. Why won't somebody confess to cheating on their spouse? Because they won't confess the logic that is, I did something wrong. But until they confess it, you're not going to be able to get past it. Right? Confession. Right? So we got to get to the spot where it's like, what's keeping us together? Right, we're addressing the numerator. We want to keep skipping over the denominator. When you get the denominator in order, see, the reason why your canon, regardless of whether you think it's a religious canon or not, you still have a canon. By the way, you have a doctrine. The word doctrine just means anything that a group of people lift up. If you lift up something that somebody wrote, guess what? That's your doctrine, right? So even in your doctrine, what is your doctrine? What is our doctrine as a people? When you say you're part of a diaspora, what is the doctrine of your diaspora? Your diaspora ain't holding nothing up together. We're so busy talking about all this stuff and arguing that where is the stuff going? At least I can say that, you know what, we're working on getting land. I've been hearing people talk about we need our own land. Nobody wants to give to it, by the way. Nobody wants to say, let's start together. Nobody wants to actually give in. Like, there's tons of groups like us that are working on getting land, doing research, all this stuff or whatever. By the way, those who need the stuff, that we got the stuff later, whatever, and then we had some stuff personal setback wise, so we didn't get stuff out to you. But I promise you, you're gonna get the stuff today. But when we're working on the land stuff, like everybody talking about land, where everybody at though? Like we got money in the account. We trying to keep on moving. And this isn't an Umar Johnson type thing for people who want to say he didn't move fast enough, which he didn't, but he didn't move fast enough and I ain't giving to this and blah, blah, whatever. Like, we contact people, we call people, we travel to people, we see about you. We give money for food. We make sure that we do stuff together. Like we live in what we say and still contributed and still working on things and have changed people's lives and have changed people's things as far as sovereignty and are giving people classes that they couldn't afford and all this stuff. And people will not support, but people will argue about it. I'm not saying this because I just want you to give me a break. I'm talking about there's thousands of groups like this out here. And not one of them are getting anywhere because we all working against each other. And I try to work with some of these groups. And as soon as you do, well, you know what? You're not doing exactly what we're doing. Fine, we don't have to do exactly. We don't have to live together. But dang, can we, trade with each other? Can we grow food together? Can we do anything together? But no, because we got to argue the numerator. Like, where's the denominator? If you say, some of these people say the same thing that we say, supposedly. They say they believe what we believe. Thank you again, Robinson. Is it Montarius Robinson? They say they believe the same thing that we believe. And it's like, okay, put your money where your mouth is. We are. Like, I am fully aware that the goal is October, and if October happens and something doesn't happen exactly the way we want, I am totally aware that I'm on the hook for it. But I don't mind going out there. But people are waiting. There are gonna be more people waiting to point their finger and say, "See, they didn't get it in October." I believe we're gonna get it. But I'm just saying, let's say it happens October 31st, right? See, they really weren't what they were about, blah blah. The whole month, I promise you, people are gonna be like, they didn't see, they didn't do this. Where's the pictures? Where's the school? Where's all this stuff? They're gonna be saying all this stuff. I know, I know this. But but you got to comprehend. There's more people that are ready to come at you and talk about the numerator and not talk about the denominator. There's more people that are ready to make that argument and live by that argument. And so we could continue to go through a whole bunch of this stuff over and over again. But the denominator is more important than the numerator, y'all. Right? The denominator more important than the numerator. It just is. And by the way, I'm sorry, you were talking about the Hermetic philosophy. I guess you're talking about Hermeticism, right? The system of things. And it's basically, it's kind of sort of like, I mean, it's kind of sort of to me just like somebody taking hermeneutics, but once again dealing with it without the denominator. Anything can fit into Hermeticism, really, if you're not careful with it. Um, I don't feel one way or the other about it. It's not really anything new to me. You said Will Smith and is it Smollett? I don't remember how to pronounce. Are two top search black men in America now. Hmm. Okay. Oh no, Cash. No, I was just saying as far as Hermeticism, I don't really know. I mean, I know what it is. I just don't. It's not really. I said hermeneutics. I guess you can't say Hermeticism and hermeneutic, but for me, it seems like it's hermeneutical, just without the right denominator. But I think there's a lot of great things that come out of it. And by the way, I think that that's something too, as far as in our community, that needs to happen more. There does need to be more questioning of things, right? But and I'm not saying you're doing this, Cash. I'm just saying in general. I think that we need to get to a place to where once again we're not questioning things just for the sake of questioning things. Are we questioning things with like an end result in mind? Like at the end of this, we're gonna get somewhere with these questions. These questions are coming because we want answers. When we get these answers, we're gonna actually move in a different way. Right? Like that needs to become more of the part of the equation. But if you get the right denominator, you're gonna get better answers. See, right now we're doing stuff like, well, I believe that the denominator is Ra. Well, I believe the denominator is Zeus. Well, I believe the denominator is this. And so somebody says, okay, so you got, instead of it being 1/1 plus 1/1 plus 1/1 equals 3/1, we get to a place where we go, well, 1/2 plus 1/3 plus 1/4 gets you to the same place. It equals 3/1, but that's not true. The denominator is off. And what I'm saying is we can keep trying to argue the numerator all day, but the numerator is not the problem. If the numerators can be whatever, and then we can figure it out. So if you're telling me the answer is 3, right? And and you've been doing all this stuff to get 3, but I've come to find out, wait a minute, your numerator's off. Once again, your denominator's off. Once again, let's test the denominator, test the numerator to see if it's of proper value. The denominator is going to test to see if what you say on that numerator is it what you say it is. So let's put the denominator back in place. You say that we say Yahweh, we say Elohim, we say that he's supposed to be the denominator. Fine, let him be the denominator. It helps us to have a proper compass. So you were saying that it was 2/2, right? Plus 1/1, plus 1/1 was going to equal 3. Well, technically you could say yes, but the problem with that is that your denominator is wrong. So it's really still not the same thing, because if you're saying 2/2, 2/2 is technically supposed to be 1/1. So the only reason why 2/2 can actually end up being correct is because we actually we had to change the numerator, to make sure that it fit the denominator at the bottom. I might be going too far in this for some because I don't have my board with me, right? I'm not saying it's hard, but I know it's, without me writing it out, it might be easy. So long story short, if I were to say, well, let's test it by the actual denominator. Let's see if you're making it look, because you're saying, well, no, see, my denominator, my denominator is 2, but my numerator is 2. See, and so I get to say that it's the same as your 1/1 plus 1/1. All right, well, let's test what you're saying. If the denominator is Yashvai, let's make it 2/1 plus 1/1 plus 1/1 equals 3. The answer is that's incorrect, because the denominators all have to be what? The same. So 2/2 doesn't mean that 2 plus 1 equals 3. No, it means that you have to make it 1/1 first. Why? Because the denominator has to match. We're fighting about stuff, and the denominator does not match. That is why your society is defined in an unrighteous or non-legal standard. We are trying to define things. People are being very tricky. Marriage means sex. Sex means marriage. That's why you got to change the definition of marriage. You got to change the definition of sex so that you can say legally now we can go ahead and allow them to be able to do the same stuff and have the same rights as other people who are married. You had to change the definition of marriage because that meant you had to change the definition of sex. But then why did states have a problem with that? You think it was a huge thing. States had a problem with it, these countries, because states are just countries. The states had a problem with it. You hear what I'm saying? The states had a problem with it because they said, well, hold up. We have it defined where, sodomy ain't legal. Why did they put that? Not because they even cared if what a man and a woman did in their own room. They cared because, well, two men could then say that if sodomy is legal, well, they could say they were married. Well, you can't be married. So they said sodomy is illegal. They're not going to arrest somebody for sodomy, but they were saying, we're not going to allow you to be married. It was a clear line in the sand. Right now, when you do that, you get rid of the clear line in the sand. Well, what is marriage? What is marriage? What is marriage? If sex doesn't matter, if male or female doesn't matter, what is it? Can it be defined? Should it be defined? That's really what people are asking. Should we define marriage? Should we tell boys and girls that they're male and female? Should we teach them what a husband or wife is before they get married? Have you ever thought about the fact that the things that define your society are the things that are under the most attack? Nobody cares. Nobody cares if somebody's, as much as people talk about people caring about people's health and everything, man, you don't care if you go see a movie and somebody snorts a line of cocaine. You're fine with it. Because you don't really care. But you know what? They better not put in the movie. They better not put in the movie to say that, Yashvai is over everybody. You ain't gonna find that in the movie. We got a problem there because the things that define your society are under attack. Right? Oh, snow. What is it? Snow or snowfall or something? Is that the one you're talking about? I've heard people talking about it. I don't know much. I thought it was actually about snow. Maybe it's about cocaine. I didn't even know. So you got to be ready. And hey, how you doing, humble kings? Like, you got to be ready. Like, what is defining your society? What is the denominator? We're arguing the numerator, but the numerator don't matter if the denominator is not the same. We don't have something. Watch this, and this is how important it gets, because now the addition or the multiplication, or the the exponential growth, whatever it is, this stuff isn't moving. It's not growing. You know why it's not growing? Because guess what? Your denominator is different. In this part of the diaspora, in this house, we say that 2/2. In this house, we say 3/2. In this house, we say 3/4. In this house, we say 5/6. In this house, we say 1/8. In this house, we say 1/1. The denominators are so jacked up. There's nothing that holds us together. We don't even know how to add up what we are yet, because there's no common denominator. And how you doing? Is it Talia? Right? We don't have a common denominator. There's nothing that says in all of our homes, this is what we do. There's nothing in our home that says we're not dependent, we're not independent, we are interdependent. Over here, well, I'm independent, I don't need you, blah, blah. Well, what you married for? I'm independent, I don't need what you married for. Leave that man, leave that woman alone. I'm totally dependent with what you married for. You ain't supposed to be totally dependent on nobody, but be interdependent. But we have this thing messed up. We're coming from other people's societies, and they're falling apart. They are crying out. They're doing everything they can to try and make sure that they come together for one last hurrah because they feel like they're dying off. Oh, can you believe that people with blue eyes and that watch Netflix are going through something to where a country is trying to invade them? They said that, right? They watch Netflix just like you. That's not a that ain't got nothing to do with me. Sorry. You know why? Because I'm trying to get you. They talk about black people shooting each other in Chicago. I'm trying to get you to stop putting bullets and guns in the alleys in Chicago. Why don't they talk about that? That's happening right here. That's happening in the state or the country of Illinois. Tonight, there will be a police officer that will leave a crate of guns and bullets, right? That will have no serial number scratched off. That means that they got them from other places. They got them from people. They put them right back into the community. They say, kill each other off. And then when you kill each other off, we'll arrest the ones that killed you. We'll have you take care of most of the work. And then we'll go ahead and put you in prisons. And you want me to worry about Ukraine because they watch Netflix? Them little boys is going to shoot each other tonight. They watch Netflix too. How about that? Run till that, right? You can get mad at it all day. I'm just telling you, right? Like you want me to tell you that I signed, you want me to get on here and sign off and be like, yo, let your brothers, let your sisters, let your fathers, let your uncles, let your daughters, let your mamas, let your grandmamas, or whatever, go over and fight a war. Let's make sure we go over there and possibly have World War III happen and possibly have to deal with some nuclear fallout. Meantime, though, there's going to be a police officer making sure that he does his duty so that somebody else will come by who's a young black child and make sure that he ends the life of another young black child. Who's defining your society for you? Why is it more important to take care of them and not take care of your children? I'm not saying we shouldn't take care of as many people as possible, but why is it defined? Why are we defining our roles based off of somebody who's already told you they could care less about you? Oh, thank you, Mika. Appreciate it. Why are we defining these roles based on somebody who's told you I don't care about you? I don't care about what your people go through. I don't care about what your life is about. I don't care about none of it. They told you straight up. Their actions have told you over and over again. They could care less. And then people look at us strange when we say, hey, we should live together. Why you want to live together? Why you want to buy acres of land? A few families went out, right? Was it 19 families bought 70 acres of land, whatever it was, 100, I don't know what it was, and bought all that land, and people were so busy telling them how terrible that was. Why? Because you're not ready to give up. It's like Malcolm X used to tell us. And I'm sorry, I missed what Tamara said. They arrest for the unsanctioned murders, not the ones authorized by their system. Yeah, exactly. We have a war over here, a war on our people. Shoot, you from H-Town, Shima? You know, if somebody say what they from the West, you know what that means? That don't mean the same thing that we think it means West Coast. No, you know in Houston what the West is. That's a war zone. Who over in the West taking care of people in H-Town? All these people getting voted in. Has the Houston mayor made sure he gonna take care of the West? If he ain't gonna take care of you, then you got to take care of you. DC, we still got people in Southeast. They talk about people in Southeast. They gentrifying as much as they can, but they still leaving a bunch of people in Southeast living monstrous lives. You got to be a monster to make it out Southeast. You got to be a monster to make it out PG County. You got to be a monster to make it out of there. That's why they don't call you human. They call you monsters. You got to be to make it out of there. They ain't working to make sure that they turn these people into young men and young women and husbands and wives. Yeah, and other communities make sure they take care of each other. We should take care of ourselves. But once again, who defines your roles? Right? Who defines your roles? I'm sorry, I didn't ever get to that. Sorry, Deja, you right. Malcolm X, he wants I forget where I was going now. I don't think I was going to say where he said I'm a Republican, I'm Democrat, and got sense enough to know. I can't remember where I was going with that. Uh, well, let me go here. I don't think this is where I was going, but let me just go where I'm led. Malcolm X made a point to say that you can't call me a diner just because I walk in a diner. You said, who is the common numerator? We're not worried about the numerator. You got to worry about the denominator. The numerator gets added up. Then you find out once you add everything up what the numerator is based off of adding up. What's that gift? What's that calling? What do we do? What do we bring to the table? This and that. But you can only add it up when the denominator's there. So we don't know what the common numerator is. The numerator is common when you add it up, or subtracted, or multiplied, or divided, which are all just basically adding in different ways. So, when you're talking about the numerator, right? When you're talking about the numerator, the numerator is when we add up our gifts, not calling. Common denominator, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim. Universal law. Universe is uni, a verse, spoken sentence. Who spoke the sentence? Who spoke the universe into existence? How you doing, Wendy? Sorry, I didn't catch you. If you're still on with us. If you're on the podcast, we're getting ready to go ahead and take our leave soon. Or as far as the podcast is going to get ready to go off in probably less than a minute or so. So if you want to go ahead and jump on to Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, we'd love to have you come on there as we get ready to take our leave and deal into this a little more. But Malcolm X said that don't call me a diner just because I walk in a diner. He said I can walk in the establishment and it can say diner as I walk in. He said you can give me a menu. He said there are going to be people around me dining and having a great time. He said, but if I can't order certain things off the menu, or if I can't order at all, or if I can even order and pay for things, but I don't have anything on my plate, he said, I'm not a diner. He said, you can't call me a diner until you first let me dine. Right? He says, since they arrest evidence of the original, does that make Yahweh the hidden one? I guess we could say that in a sense, although there's a whole bunch of evidence. I mean, it's like his story versus our story, right? Even in his story, they keep telling you the truth. Like if you get a concordance and use it with your Bible, it's going to tell you every time you see Lord God, it means Yahweh Elohim. If you look on some of the ancient walls, even now, I don't know if this be Kemetic writing or Greek people trying to write over stuff. In all honesty, just keep it 100. But you'll find on some Egypticos writing, people call it hieroglyphics. You'll find Yahweh. We know that Pontius Pilate got kicked out because he had 2 times. He got kicked out for the second time where there was a big crowd of people that were going against a groundswell, a grassroots movement that started to get violent. The first time was with Yashua. The second time was when you were dealing with people that were getting tired of Rome and were trying to push back. So it's like there's evidence throughout. I mean, even if you go past that, I mean, look at carvings. We know there's carvings that go back thousands of years before Christ. Called one carving in particular called the face of Ishmael. Right, and Ishmael is a character. Some people try to call it Isaac. I actually say, if you're being honest about it, it has to be the face of Ishmael. It's not saying Ishmael was the promised son, but Ishmael was Abraham's son. Let's not be so quick. If you're talking about the moon god, you're talking about Ishtar, right? Ishtar is the furthest back you really go with that, or Samarias, but that was her real name. That wasn't her actual, that was her real name. But she started saying she was Ishtar. So a lot of people who do mother, father, God principle, if you look at all these religions, they're basically all trying to say mother, God, father, God, child, mother, God, father, God, child. First place to do that is not Ishtar, though. First place to do that is everybody around the world had this agreement that there was a son that was going to come from a woman, and that the woman was going to be impregnated by the father, the source. The father, the source, was not necessarily believed to be physical. So you had that principle happening. Well, we have that in Bereshit. People try to call that Genesis, but you go to Bereshit, Gemal, or what we call Genesis chapter 3. Nowadays, in another language, you'll see that that's the same principle, and that's what was going to happen. The source needing to come back for his for the world was going to come through a woman, right? And this woman actually represented a nation, and that nation there was going to be a child. Isaiah chapter 9. You start reading that. We got to get ready to take our lead, but real quick, let me just go ahead, because a lot of times when we read Isaiah chapter 9, I do this a lot too. I usually will start at like verse 6, and that's kind of, we read verse 6 and 7, we kind of leave it there, right? But let's actually read the context of it. We usually just dip out on that, but let's read the whole context. Isaiah 9 verse 6 is where a lot of us like to start, but let's start from verse 1, and we'll end on this. We'll get ready to get out or to take our leave. I almost said it. I didn't say it. We get ready to take our leave, right? And let's see if we can get the proper denominator out of this. Let's see if we can see this properly. Y'all ready? Isaiah chapter 9, verse 1 is going to have to be quick because I'm having issues with charging my devices for some reason this rising. So I'm going to be quick, but I think everybody will get it. And by the way, if you guys are on Facebook, if you're on the podcast, if you're on TikTok, if you're on YouTube, take time out to look at the different places that we're on, because every once in a while, somebody doesn't like what we're doing. They try to kick us off. And so it's always great. Or let's say we lose signal on one of them or something like that, or device goes down, you always can go somewhere else. So please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to share it and subscribe and all that. Thank you for that as well, right? But please check out the YouTube channel, check out the podcast, check out Facebook, check out, we don't do as much on Twitter, but check out Twitter, check out Patreon, even if you want to go a little deeper. Check out all the different places, check out IG, check out a lot of places that we're on. And also a lot of places you can connect with us as far as Gmail, phone numbers, things of that nature. All right. But let's go ahead and get into this, and we'll get ready to take our leave. All right. So we're gonna go Isaiah chapter 9, and we're gonna read through some. We usually only start at verse 6, but let's just read. A lot of times we don't even read what it says. All right. So peep game. And so Isaiah chapter 9, verse 1 says, Nevertheless, that means you might need to read what was going on before. Nevertheless means don't worry about that as much as you can still do something like this, or you're still dealing with what's coming up. All right. So nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation. Right. The dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. We're dealing with two different tribes. And afterward did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan and Galilee of the nations. The people that walked in darkness, that's confusion, have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, which we should not fear. See, this is even a place, the land of the valley of the shadow, or the valley of the shadow of death. So those who are in this land, let's just even break there real quick. Let's look at this real quick. What is the valley? So those who go through this land, right? They that dwell even. So there's people that dwell in this shadowy place, right? There's people that dwell in this shadowy place, right? Really, we be talking about Sheol. How you doing, Yah's firstborn? Shalom to you, right? We're talking about Sheol. Even those people that are in Sheol, maybe you would call it hell, right? So there are people that are going through hell here. So when it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, it's talking about even when I'm going through hell, or there are people that I have to go through their land, and going through their land is like going through hell. When you read that next time, it'll help you to see that a little differently, right? But nevertheless, oh, thank you, Dawn. I know you have. I appreciate you. So nevertheless, right? So the people that walked in darkness and confusion have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, in a hellish situation, upon them hath the light shine, right? So the enlightenment is coming. Verse 3, thou hast multiplied the nation. We're growing, and not increased the joy. So we've grown in number. They tried to kill us, and we still here, right? They've scattered us, but we still here. Yet what? It says, yet, it says what? It says, yet we still don't have the joy. Joy is not happiness or sadness. By the way, it is not an emotional response. Joy is a state of being. Did you catch that? Joy is my state of being. Joy is not an emotional response. Joy is what I state, what I've stated, what's been stated in me, what state I'm in, what country, what kingdom, what mindset I'm in. Okay. So we've grown in number, but we still ain't a state. We're still not a country. We're still in the holy nation. We're forgetting who we are. The joy before thee, according to the joy in harvest. And as men rejoice, we rejoice, or joy, even by the way, means to jump as well, right? So it's like a state of leaping, a state of joy. So to rejoice is to be lean. So, and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. So we're looking for treasures and things for ourselves so that we can divide the spoil. Verse 4, for thou hast broken the yoke of his burden. Who are they talking about? Thou. It's talking about Yahweh, but also it's going to be talking about Yashvai. And it's going to be talking about Ravak Hakwadash, right? Something's about to happen from the Most High. We're going to see this happen in a second, right? So, for thou has broken the yoke. What is the yoke? Not egg yolk, right? Just in case somebody's saying it. The yoke, something that be carried on the shoulder, something that would yoke us to each other, right? Being equally yoked, not meaning we are the same exact person, meaning that you have people of different strengths that are connected to each other, right? If you study how oxen are actually yoked. So, therefore, it says, therefore has the yoke of his burden, right, it's been broken. The thing that was burdening you, that yoked you together in burden, it's going to be broken, right? And the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian, all that is gone. The oppressor is about to be off us. Verse 5, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise. Every battle of the warrior, he's in confusion. Now, confused noise is interesting. If you don't get the concept of this, remember that is it Gideon, I believe, is leading a charge against the enemy. And Gideon and them, they come up and they're ready to go ahead and battle against the enemy, right? And all of a sudden, while getting ready to battle, they're told that they have too many people. They're already got way less than the people they're going against. The Most High says you got too many. They go to a place to where now they go ahead and they remove some. And then he still says, so they basically ask, look, those of you who got a heart to fight, I like that. Amen. Confused noise versus a joyful noise. I'm on, right? That'll preach right there, sis. But so they say, hey, anybody who's not in on this fight, anybody that doesn't have a heart for this, don't feel bad. We ain't trying to hold you here. We ain't gonna be mad at you if you do what you got. You feel you got to do something for your family, whatever. Like you feel like this is unsurmountable odds. If you want to go home, go home. People leave. They're at a huge disadvantage now. Most High says it's still too many. And they end up going from thousands to now all of a sudden they only got hundreds left where they do one last test where they had everybody drink from the water. And he said, look, if people drink from the water and they put their head in like this, or they drinking but they're looking down, he said you can't have them in there because they're not paying attention to their surroundings. He said, but when you see them drink and that they cup it to their mouth, but they're looking around as they drink, he said that's the fighter that you want. So now they're in a place, and then guess what? When it looks like all hope is lost, you got to have extreme faith. But they said, look, Yahweh said this is what we're supposed to do. We in, right? We in on this all the way. This is what we're supposed to do. Okay, let's go. And they thinking we just gonna have to fight, and somehow, some way, we're gonna become extreme fighters and be powerful and all this stuff. Like people think Samson had all these muscles, but never told you Samson had muscles. It just said that he was strong. It said when the spirit came upon him, he was just strong. So he could have been a string bean. I don't believe he was, but he could have been a string bean, and it wouldn't have mattered. As long as that hair was in place, right, and it was locked up, he was whenever he needed to, he was going to be able to protect Israel from the Philistines and kill thousands of people, even with the jawbone of an ass, right? So here he is. So here we are talking on these things, speaking on these things, and so it says what? It says that the battle of the warrior is confused noise. All of a sudden, Gideon and them are getting ready to fight, so they think. But then all of a sudden, the enemy, when they hear Gideon and them praising and being joyful and making a joyful noise, it becomes confused noise for them. That's why I said that'll preach, Minister Tamer, right? Right? They make a joyful noise and it becomes a confused noise. They're happy and excited about what the Most High is doing. The enemy is confused because the Most High took their sound and amplified it. He came in the midst of the sound and said, let me make this thing, let me put this thing on the loudspeaker. Let me put this thing on the loudspeaker like they speaking in 1963 in front of the Lincoln Memorial, right? Let me put this thing to where you can't help but hear this. And the enemy got confused because it sounded like they were the ones that were outnumbered. And it said they not only began to run, it said people began to kill themselves because they were so afraid of the noise that they heard. What was joyful for one group actually was confused noise for the other. So it says here, verse 5, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise. That's talking about the oppressor. Verse 4 just told us that the oppressor. So every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, because this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Verse 6, now unto us a child is born. Here's the denominator. Here's the denominator. For all that must take place, for all these things culturally to be in line, for us to be able to fight, for us to be able to be together, for us to be united, for us to be able to come against our enemies. Now this is why you need Isaiah 9, verse 6. For unto us a child is born. All right, through this woman, through Yashville, and right, and unto us a son is given, and the government, the kingdom, shall be upon his shoulder, and his sham, his name, his authority will be what? Shall be called, invited. He'll be invited to through this authority. He has to do what? To be wonderful, to be counselor. Who is the counselor? Who will he be led by? Yeah, right. The mighty Elohim, the everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. Father, Son, Holy Spirit showing up. Verse 7, of the increase. Didn't stop there. We ain't finished yet. Verse 7, of the increase of his government. We're supposed to be increasing together. Right? We're not supposed to just wait and die, and some glad morning when this life is over, we'll fly away. There should be some increase. What you in this for if there's no increase? Just being honest, right? So for right, of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. Upon what? Whose throne? The same throne that shows up in Revelation. Upon the throne of David. Davad. What does Davad or David mean? It means beloved. When you see beloved, let us love one another. Beloved, let not your heart be troubled. That's it. That's the same word as David. So it's saying, David, let not your heart be troubled. David, if you believe in the Father, also believe in me. David, check this out, David, but check this out, Judah, check this out, beloved, check this out, Israel, in my father's house. Check this out, those grafted in my father's house. There are many mansions. If it was not so, I wouldn't have told you. Coming through the government. So verse 7, of the increase of his government and the peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it. So we got to follow orders, and to establish it. How is he going to establish it? With judgment and with justice. That's why law is necessary. Law protects you from judgment. Law protects your rights. Law gives you justice. So he will establish it with judgment and with justice, and from henceforth, even forever, the zeal. He's zealous. The zeal of Yahweh of hosts will perform this. Now watch this. And we're about ready to take our leave, right? Signal wise, energy wise, battery wise, I can't even go too much further, right? So we're about to take our leave, I promise you. But check this out. We often don't even read before verse 6 and 7, and then we often just stop here. Check this out. So Adon sent, or the Lord sent word unto Jacob, or Jacob, or unto Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. So he sent the word. He sent the angel down, wrestled with the angel in the middle of the night, right? He wrestled with the angel in the middle of the night. Okay. And so upon that, what had happened? His name changed to Yashville, to Israel. He was enlightened, has lighted upon Israel. Verse 9, and all the people shall be intimate with what? And all the people shall be intimate with what? Even Ephraim, right? Which is, we're talking about son, right? We're talking about child, that child of, well, also too, you're dealing with some tribal issues that have happened too, right? We don't have time for right now, but you also talking about the son of Joseph, right? So even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride of stoutness of heart, the bricks are falling down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore, Yahweh shall set up, watch this, the adversaries of Rezin against him and join his enemies together, the Syrians before and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with open mouth. Israel's going to have to go through some things. For all his anger is not turned away, but his hand is still stretched out. You got to pay the consequences for what you did, but his hand is still stretched out. I wish we had time to really go through that. There's a lot in there. But verse 13, for the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they see Yahweh of hosts. They don't even turn to him. We're not turning to him. We don't have a denominator. We're arguing about everything else except him. Right? We're arguing about everything else except him. Thank you, Shalonda. We're arguing about everything except him. Right? Therefore, the Lord, watch this. I'm sorry, where was I at? We don't even seek him. Verse 14. Therefore, because of that, Yahweh will cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush. And one day, the ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. So because of disobedience, just like death, remember, death existed before Adam and Eve, or Adam at Chavach, or Chavavach, who we call Eve, Adam and Eve. Before they sinned, they actually had, there was death. Death did what? Once the sin happened, they would have been separated from the Most High forever had they ever ate of the tree of life and lived eternally. So they were not allowed to eat of the tree and were kicked out of the garden to make sure that they could be protected, and they could actually have, now death was something to separate them from eternal sin, or to be in this position of eternally being separated from the Most High. Can you imagine what it is, the pain of being in eternal death? You know, you've been zombies, vampires, even. You know, isn't that part of the whole thing, that vampires have this whole bad thing? Because, yeah, you get to live forever, but man, what does it mean to live forever if you don't even have anybody that can actually be on your level? Or what is it to live forever with a bunch of people that are in sin? Or what is it to live forever, but you can't even, taste or do this or whatever, right? All these different things that come with it, right? But you're dealing with this kind of necrophilia type movement where everybody's in love with death. But death is something that's there designed to help you to be separated from what you want to be. Right? So the ancient and the honorable, right? The ancient is the head. The things of our fathers are the head, and the prophet who lies, the prophet lie, not prophesy, but they prophet lie to you, they're gonna get cut off too. In one day, in one period of time, all that was cut, because he had to prevent us from going to this place of perpetual sin. So he had to cut us off from certain things. See, we think cutting off is just a punishment, but every punishment from a parent, if a parent gives proper punishment, right? If a parent gives proper punishment, you should never punish just because. You should punish because it's going to be a life lesson for your child, correct? So you were punishing. So every punishment, is a consequence, but you should give a punishment to try and help somebody get back on track. Hey, babe, how you doing? My wife is on the Honorable Mind. Once again, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. And we appreciate you for doing so in advance. Right? So he cut Israel off. Verse 16, for the leaders, watch this, for the leaders of this people caused them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. So the leaders are the blind leading the blind. Thank you, Sister Sharice. Verse 17, therefore, because of that, Yahweh Adon, the Lord shall have no joy for their young men. Right? There will be no leaping for their young men. Men are in a position right now. What? Neither shall have mercy on their fatherless and widows. For everyone is a hypocrite. You live underneath the criteria, and an evildoer. And every mouth speaketh folly. You're speaking things that aren't even sensical, right? For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is still stretched out, right? All this stuff he angry, but guess what? He's still trying to give you a lifeline through this. Don't get so caught up on the penalty that you don't see the lifeline, right? And all this stuff is happening, but his hands is stretched out still. For wickedness burneth as the fire; it shall devour the briars and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like lifting up of smoke. Through the wrath of Yahweh of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as fuel of the fire. The people are going to burn. No man shall spare his brother. We killing each other. And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat of the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. And they shall eat every man flesh of his arm. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, right? Once again, separation in there. We don't have time for that. But Manasseh, Ephraim, Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah, against Yehuda, Benjamin, and Levi. We talked about that yesterday. Against Judah, for all his anger is not turned away. But guess what? His hand is still stretched out. How is his hand still stretched out? Because in all the stuff that they're going through, guess what? Yashua is coming. Y'all catch that? Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 and 7. He's coming. That's the promise. That's the Messiah. That's the denominator. The numerators that are popping up in all these different things. Right? The numerator that keeps popping up and all these different things. You're fighting against the numerator, all these different things. The denominator's coming. Right? The denominator's coming. Focus on the denominator. And all this stuff he kept saying, this hand is still stretched out. Hand is still stretched out. What is the hand that's still stretched out? A child to us is born, a son to us is given, the government be upon his shoulders. And his name shall be what? Wonderful Counselor, the mighty Elohim, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. He's coming. He's coming. He's already came. He died. He says he wants to be in you. The question is no longer, is he coming? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Then Yahshua came, right? That's what John said. Malachi chapter 3. John was going to be the one that was going to speak, make the way straight, and was going to come before him. Then all of a sudden he looked up. He said, here's the one. Here's my cousin. Here's the one I kept telling you all about. Here comes Yahshua. Yahshua says, baptize me. And he goes out and he says, hey, look, the kingdom of heaven is here. He goes into the synagogue and he reads and he says, all the stuff y'all been looking for. Sight coming back to the blind. People that are deaf can hear. The dumb can be able to speak again. All these things that we need to come into a community again. We've lost what it is that our father stood for. The head was cut off. All these different things. All these things you read in Isaiah, all these things you read in Isaiah, I'm here. Now, what you gonna do with me? You said, where can you find the bio so you can read about the vision and core principles? Well, once again, if you want to look where it says on TikTok here, just look where it says bio. And then you can find a little bit of information, but then just go to our link tree. If you go to our link tree and you click on there, you should be able to see our website. And on the website, you'll see things like the 7 F's as far as like how we feel about faith and food and family, things like that. You'll see classes that we give, even though we're pretty much finished up as far as being able to take anybody in the first semester, but we'll have a second semester coming up. We have different things on Zoom, like our Bible study sessions. We do early rise in prayer. That's led by Minister Anais. We have Shabbat Shalom stuff. We're working on land. We have different places. So we have different people in different places that unite with each other. And we're trying to get that more going on a greater rate. People that are in, don't forget people that are in the Southeast region. We're going to be April 16th. We're going to be over there in your area. So if you want to come out and hang out with us, Georgia on up to Southern Virginia in that area, parts of Tennessee, parts of, at that point, if you want to travel, you might be traveling too far or whatever. So we're not asking everybody to pick up, but that's going to be April 16th. So we're getting closer and closer to that date. So set that aside and, let us know what you guys think about that and what's up if you want to come by and holler at us. We're working on making sure that we reach out to all of you guys, and we're appreciative of everybody. We thank you so much. So, but yeah, you can find us in many different places. One of the easiest ways to find us is just look up hashtag find Kofi, my name, hashtag FIND, like you're searching for somebody, and then Kofi, KOFI, and you should be able to find us all right. All right. But we appreciate you. We honor you. We thank you. Reach out to us if you're interested in being able to meet up with us. We're obviously looking at throughout this year going everywhere. But then, of course, October 14th through the 16th, we're all going to meet together again. So, and I mean, when we say all this time, we mean we're all going to try to converge upon the same spot. We look forward to talking to you guys very soon. I'm going to get ready to take my leave and get on my grind for the day. When are we coming to the Dallas area? We're trying to figure that out. We're going to try and figure it out. We're going to try and see if we can have Sister Barbara and Sister Shima maybe call everybody in those areas if we have your number and information. Try and contact everybody who are in those areas and see what you guys feel about it, where we're going to meet. That's going to be, that area is like everybody in Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Louisiana, Arkansas, and others. And then, of course, we now starting to get more people back on the West Coast again. They had shut down the original pages. So we're gonna go back to those. But we appreciate you all. We're on every rising 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Don't forget Passover is coming up soon. Please continue to get that lint out of your home. This Friday will be the first, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because what is today? Somebody help me. What is today's date? Okay, so this Friday, I believe. Let me just double check before I say it. Yeah. All right. So this Friday will be the first Friday of April, April 1st. And so on that first Friday, every first Friday of each month, we try to make sure that people go out into the community and bless somebody. We talk about this stuff, but we want to be a blessing to others. So please make sure that you go out there to be a blessing to somebody. We appreciate you. We honor you. We thank you. If you want to be a patron and Patreon members, you're going to get a whole bunch of videos. Again, I think that's the easiest way for me to do it, just time wise. I don't even have time every day to put out 5-minute video. Get that. That's crazy how much we've grown, but not crazy. It is what it is. The Most High is blessing us. So, but we'll make sure Patreon members, you guys get a flood of videos, a flood of pictures today. So look forward to that. If you're a Patreon member, if you want to become one, just look on Patreon for Kofi Ofori. You get the app or go online. It's $5 a month. $5 a month helps us with a lot of costs that we have to help do things around the world. And our goal is to see if we can get up to 1,000 subscribers on there. If we reach that, then we bare minimum make $5,000 to be able to make sure that we can take care of stuff, and a lot of stuff that we are taking out of other areas that, we can start putting that money back into other areas. And that's a really easy way. And if something happens to where they take us down, we still have a place where we can all meet up together. So, there you go. But thank you all. We appreciate you. We honor you. We appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet, we appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Please take time out to not only be a hearer of this word, we need you to study it, pray on it, meditate, compare it, whatever it is, work out the kinks, make it work for you so that you can go from being a hearer only to being a hearer and a doer of it as well. So you can execute. Thank you so much for being on. We'll be back on tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Those who have Hebrew characters with us will be back on later as well. And we appreciate your time. So remember, as always, please, Yastel, that you are loved, you are necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.